Chapter 3964. The peak of the dark pit demon mountain suddenly fell into silence. Only Jilin occasionally roared. The other 8 people looked at each other and saw a strong murderous intent in each other's eyes. If they wanted to leave alive, they had to get rid of the others. Interesting, really interesting. It's so interesting to be able to get rid of so many geniuses at once. I will use you as my stepping stone to break through to the godly emperor realm. Battle God Yuan grinned and his eyes were full of fighting spirit. At this time, he was still fighting like a madman. His aura seemed to have reached a critical point. Lu Ming's aura was also extremely powerful and had reached a peak. However, no one made the first move. They were all on guard against each other, waiting for the others to make the first move so that they could reap the benefits. The scene was in a stalemate. Roar. At this time, Jilin roared again and jumped into the pit, as if something in the pit was attracting him. However, when he jumped into the pit, there was another powerful aura that rushed out of the pit and forced Jilin out. This madman, I suggest that we make a move first and get rid of Jilin so that he won't cause any more trouble. What do you think? The young man from the Shura clan said. This person was called Xiaomoyun, and he had been eyeing Jilin since the beginning. Among the 9 people present, Lu Ming and Battle God Yuan were undoubtedly the strongest at the same level, but their cultivation was only at the quasi-emperor realm, so they were not the biggest threat to him. The biggest threat to him was Jilin. After all, Jilin was a candidate for the Universe Prodigy list. He was extremely powerful and was one of the top geniuses in the universe. His current cultivation was suppressed to the first godly emperor realm, just like him. He had no confidence to fight against Jilin, so he had to get rid of Jilin first. On the side, the others were also tempted. Their thoughts were similar to Xiaomoyun's. Kill. Xiaomoyun took the lead and condensed a Shura sword with his divine power. It broke through the void and slashed at Jilin. Roar. Jilin saw someone attacking him and roared, revealing a ferocious murderous intent. He pounced at Xiaomoyun with his sharp claws. Evil Qi filled the air. Clang. Clang. The sound of metal colliding rang out continuously. The 2 of them had exchanged more than 10 moves in an instant. Then, a figure retreated, covered in blood. It was Xiaomoyun. After exchanging a few blows, he was injured. This made him extremely shocked. Jilin's strength was much stronger than he had imagined. Roar. Jilin roared and continued to attack Xiaomoyun. What are you waiting for? Xiaomoyun roared. However, none of the people on the side made a move. They all looked on coldly. It wouldn't be too late to let Jilin deal with Xiaomoyun first. Moreover, Xiaomoyun could consume a portion of Jilin's strength. Then, they would deal with Jilin. In this way, he could deal with the Xiaomoyun and Jilin at the same time. Of those who could make it this far, which one of them was simple? Xiaomoyun wanted to use the others to deal with Jilin first, but the others directly used him. All of you deserve to die. Xiaomoyun instantly guessed the thoughts of others and roared, but Jilin had already attacked him, so he could only do his best to resist. However, Jilin was too strong. He was originally a candidate of the Universe Prodigy list. After being possessed by the evil energy, his battle strength became even stronger, and his attacks were crazily aggressive. Although Xiaomoyun was also a peerless monster, he wasn't qualified to be a candidate of the Universe Prodigy list. In a battle of the same level, his battle strength was weaker than Jilin's. He was completely at a disadvantage and was suppressed by Jilin. After more than 10 moves, Xiaomoyun was almost beheaded by Jilin. Although he narrowly avoided it, he was still seriously injured. Damn it, all of you deserve to die, then die together. Xiaomoyun knew that he couldn't escape, so he roared crazily. His body swelled rapidly, and he was about to self-destruct. However, Jilin didn't seem to know, and continued to rush over. His sharp claws pierced through Xiaomoyun's head. Boom! At this moment, Xiaomoyun's body suddenly exploded, and a terrifying force swept in all directions. However, Lu Ming, battle god Yuan Wen, and the others were already prepared. They had already retreated to the edge of the King Qing domain, and set up layers of defense in front of them, blocking the power of Xiaomoyun's self-destruction. Yin Jieling was at the center of Xiaomoyun's self-destruction, so he suffered the most intense destructive impact. Peng! Yin Jieling's figure retreated rapidly, and there were many hideous wounds on his body, and black blood flowed out. However, in the pit, Yin Qi was constantly attracted by Yin Jieling, and it poured into his body. His wounds were quickly healing. The others' faces became solemn. This Yin Jieling is not right. Could it be that he has gone mad? It's more terrifying than I imagined. Let's attack together and get rid of him first. It's best to attack together. The remaining few people were transmitting their voices to each other. The next moment, among the remaining 5 people, 4 rushed out at the same time and attacked Yin Jieling. There was still one person who didn't attack. Lu Ming and battle god Yuan Wen didn't attack either. However, when the 4 experts joined forces, their power was extremely shocking. Because each of these people was a peerless genius, and each of them had the combat strength of a divine Emperor realm expert. Roar! Yin Jieling roared and pounced on the 4 people. The 2 sides started a fierce battle. The 4 experts joined forces to fight Yin Jieling, and Yin Jieling suddenly fell into a disadvantage. He was hit continuously, and there were several wounds on his body. Yin Jieling was injured by Xiaomoyun's self-destruction, and his combat strength wasn't at its peak. When the 4 experts saw that Yin Jieling was injured, their attacks became more violent. At the same time, they were transmitting their voices to each other. Those 3 guys don't attack. Very well, after we kill Yin Jieling, we will kill them, and then the 4 of us will fight to determine the winner. What do you think? Okay, it depends on who can go out in the end. The 4 discussed secretly, and their attacks were fierce. For a time, Yin Jieling was in danger, and there were more and more wounds on his body. Lu Ming's eyes flickered, and he was considering whether to attack. Because the ancient secret skill left by the Bone Demon was with Yin Jieling, and he had to get it. But in the end, Lu Ming still didn't attack. The current situation was very complicated, and it was better to preserve a little bit of strength. After more than 10 moves, Yin Jieling's situation became more critical. His body was tattered, and it seemed that he was going to die at any time. Rumble. At this moment, there was a violent vibration from the bottom of the pit, and then, a strong Yin Qi rushed out of the pit. There were a few strands of Yin Qi in the Yin Qi. Chapter 3965. Among the Yin Qi, there were a few strands of Yin Qi. These strands of Yin Qi seemed to be alive, like small snakes that were swimming around. This was a Yin energy that possessed spirituality. Originally, the dark pit would spew out dark Yin Qi with spirituality. Previously, battle god Yuan Wen and the others had been guarding here, waiting for the dark Yin Qi to come out. At this moment, seeing the Yin Qi spurt out, the people present were not too surprised. At this moment, being alive was more important than anything else. Only a few of them dashed forward and grabbed at the murderous aura. They were Lu Ming, battle god Yuan Wen, and Yin Jieling. Yin Jieling roared and rushed to the pit desperately. He opened his mouth and inhaled, and the Yin Qi rushed towards Yin Jieling. Lu Ming and battle god Yuan Wen's face changed. Swish! Lu Ming condensed a huge hand with his taboo power. With a grab, he caught a wisp of Yin Qi with spirituality in his hand. Battle god Yuan Wen shot out 2 beams of light from his eyes. These 2 beams of light were like 2 chains, entangling the Yin Qi and collecting it. 4 strands of spiritual Yin Qi were collected by Lu Ming and battle god Yuan Wen, and the remaining 2 strands were sucked into Yin Jieling's mouth. However, Yin Jieling absorbed the Yin Qi wholeheartedly, but ignored his own defense, and was bombarded by the attacks of the 4 masters. Bang! Yin Jiuling's body directly exploded into pieces. Only his head was left. It flew out and was wrapped in dense evil Yin Qi. At this moment, the Yin Qi that rushed out of the pit suddenly rolled back and fell back into the pit. Yin Jiuling's head took the opportunity to rush into the Yin Qi, and with the Yin Qi, it rushed into the pit and disappeared in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. The four masters looked at each other with a pale face. Yin Jiuling was forced to rush into the pit, and they didn't know whether he was dead or not. If it was someone else, they would be relieved because they would never return after rushing into the pit. But Yin Jiuling had rushed down once before, but he came out safe and sound, so they were not confident. Who knew whether Yin Jiuling was dead or not? Forget it, let's get rid of these three people first. Yes, Yin Jiuling only has one head left, and he is seriously injured. He probably won't survive. Let's get rid of them first, and then we will decide the winner. The four masters transmitted their voices to each other, and they glanced at Lu Ming, battle god Yuan Wen and another middle-aged man. Let's join forces. The middle-aged man's face changed wildly, and he quickly said. The reason why he didn't make a move before was that he wanted to sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight, because he always felt that Yin Jiuling was very strange and wouldn't be killed so easily. He didn't expect that Yin Jiuling would be killed so easily. At this time, when he saw the four masters looking at them, he was shocked. It's too late. I'll send you to hell. Two of the experts charged toward the middle-aged man while the other two charged toward Lu Ming and battle god Yuan Wen in a flash. One of them. They were confident enough. Although Lu Ming and battle god Yuan Wen were strong, they were all at the Divine Emperor realm. They could deal with Lu Ming and battle god Yuan Wen. Kill. Let's fight. Lu Ming and battle god Yuan Wen were fearless, and they roared and attacked. One of them against one. The two sides collided in an instant, and they continued to attack each other. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged more than 10 moves. However, their opponents were indeed powerful. Although they were suppressed to the first godly emperor layer, they were still able to kill cultivators of the fourth godly emperor layer. Although Lu Ming tried his best, he was still at a disadvantage, and he retreated quickly. On the other side, battle god Yuan Wen also retreated quickly, and he was also at a disadvantage. Sure enough, those who could step on the dark pit demon mountain weren't simple. They weren't much weaker than Yin Jiuling. As soon as Lu Ming retreated, the other party chased after him and continued to attack him. Explode! Lu Ming shouted, and his whole body glowed. All the secret techniques turned into dazzling brilliance, covering Lu Ming's body. At the same time, the battle character formula increased his fighting strength by 6 times, and the Great Holy Wind technique and Great Shattering technique were activated to the extreme. Boom! 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 Both sides exchanged more than 10 moves, and Lu Ming's chest was pierced by a sword qi. He coughed up blood and retreated. However, despite being injured, Lu Ming's eyes were still bright, and he had a firm and unyielding belief. There was only motivation when there was pressure. There was a sense of crisis, and there was more motivation. At this moment, he could not use his trump card, and even Chiu could not move. He could only rely on himself. Lu Ming was excited because the opportunity to break through was getting more and more obvious. Previously, when he fought with battle god Yuan Wen, he felt the opportunity to break through. He felt that he was only a step away from breaking through. At this moment, facing the crisis, this feeling was even stronger. Fight, fight, let's fight to our heart's content. Come on, you don't seem to have any strength. Ha ha ha. On the other side, battle god Yuan Wen also laughed, without a trace of fear. Instead, he was more excited. He also felt the opportunity to break through. At this moment, a shrill scream was heard. The middle-aged man, besieged by the two experts, screamed and died on the spot. After killing the middle-aged man, the two experts also pounced on Lu Ming and battle god Yuan Wen. In this way, it became 2 against 1. Originally, Lu Ming was facing one of them, and facing two of them was even more dangerous. Puff! Lu Ming's heart was pierced by a sword chi. Then, a terrifying fist force hit his abdomen. Lu Ming flew out, vomiting blood, and his body almost exploded. However, the potential stored in Lu Ming's cells gushed out crazily, and his injury was quickly healing. Soon, just a little bit more. Lu Ming's eyes were bright, and he was a little excited. In the face of a life and death crisis, his potential was stimulated to the extreme. Kill! Lu Ming shouted and took the initiative to attack the two experts. Bang! 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 After a series of collisions, Lu Ming was injured again and was forced to retreat. Let's kill him in one go. Kill! After injuring Lu Ming, the two experts unleashed their ultimate moves and attacked Lu Ming, wanting to kill Lu Ming completely. But at this moment, boom! A violent aura rushed out of Lu Ming's body, like a volcanic eruption, bringing with it a violent burst of energy. Breakthrough! At this moment, Lu Ming finally broke through and stepped into the Divine Emperor realm. At the moment of breaking through to the Divine Emperor realm, the potential stored in Lu Ming's cells was stimulated to the extreme, and all of it was transformed into Lu Ming's cultivation. Hungry. In an instant, Lu Ming was engulfed by endless hunger, as if he had not eaten for 100,000 years. Incomparable hunger was revealed in every cell. Let me absorb it. With a thought in Lu Ming's mind, piles of elven tree heart flew out, and the surging life essence madly converged towards Lu Ming. Chapter 3966. A large pile of elven wood hearts turned into surging waves of life essence and converged towards Lu Ming. Every cell in Lu Ming's body was crazily devouring and absorbing the life essence. Satisfaction, a sense of satisfaction spread throughout his body. Breakthrough. The two experts besieging Lu Ming were shocked. They did not expect that Lu Ming could break through under their joint attack. What kind of monster was he? Kill, we can't let him break through. One of them roared. Together with the other, they charged toward Lu Ming in a frenzy. When Lu Ming was still a quasi-emperor, his combat strength was already so terrifying. Once he broke through to the Divine Emperor realm, his combat strength would soar and he would definitely be far above them. They must not let Lu Ming break through. Once Lu Ming broke through, they would be the ones to die. The two experts exerted their full strength and launched two incomparably sharp and terrifying attacks towards Lu Ming's head. Kill! Lu Ming suddenly shouted and violent energy swept out from his body, forming a terrifying shockwave. The two experts were hit by the shockwave and their bodies shook violently as they retreated. Lu Ming seized the opportunity and continued to devour the life essence of the elven wood hearts crazily. Break for me! On the other side, Battle God Yuanwen also roared and a terrifying aura burst out from his body. Breakthrough! Battle God Yuanwen also broke through at the critical moment under the joint attack of the two experts. Dazzling gems appeared on his body. These gems weren't divine gems, they were precious gems that contained rich and pure energy. These energies were like a great river that rushed into the Battle God Yuanwen's mouth. The two experts were also shocked and wanted to attack Battle God Yuanwen, but they were also repelled by him. Lu Ming and Battle God Yuanwen broke through the shackles and entered the Divine Emperor realm one after another. Their aura became more and more terrifying. As for the four experts, their expressions were extremely ugly. Everyone, we have to go all out. If we don't, we'll be the ones to die. Go all out, kill. Burn. The four experts revealed a frenzied look. The divine power in their bodies burned like flames. They went all out. Regardless of the consequences, they burned their divine power and origin and charged toward Lu Ming and the Battle God Yuanwen. They had to kill the two of them. At this moment, they were filled with regret. If they had known earlier, they would have killed Lu Ming and the Battle God Yuanwen from the very beginning. Previously, the two of them were only quasi-emperors. Although they were excessively monstrous, they did not take them to heart. They were fully confident that they could suppress Lu Ming. Who would have thought that the two of them could break through to the Divine Emperor realm in the middle of the battle? Now, the ones who will die are you. Lu Ming's eyes emitted an incomparably resplendent multicolored light. His entire body was shrouded in a fierce wind. Instead of retreating, he advanced and attacked the two experts. His palm was like a blade, shattering the void as he attacked continuously. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming and the two experts exchanged blows, causing two violent explosions. Then, two muffled groans could be heard. The two experts were pushed back violently as blood spurted out from their bodies. Cracks appeared on their bodies, caused by the great shattering art. Blood flowed out from the cracks. After breaking through to the Divine Emperor realm, whether it was the Great Divine Wind technique or the Great Shattering art, their power had increased tremendously. Moreover, Lu Ming had just broken through and had yet to gain a firm foothold in the Divine Emperor realm. Otherwise, he would have killed the two experts with that move. After all, the gap between the quasi-emperors and the divine emperors was huge. Once a breakthrough was made, one's combat strength would increase tremendously. Even so, Lu Ming's combat strength was above the two experts. Fight, fight, fight. On the other side, the battle god Yuan roared madly. His combat strength was unparalleled, causing the other two experts to vomit blood. How could this be? The four experts all revealed a panic-stricken expression. They were all geniuses of their generation and their future was limitless. They did not want to die here. Looking at Lu Ming's cold eyes, they felt chills all over their bodies. Brother, why don't you spare our lives? We can cooperate and leave this place together. One of the young men shouted at Lu Ming and begged for mercy. Hee hee. Lu Ming replied with a cold smile. They wanted to kill him when they had the upper hand. Now that they were no match for him, they wanted to cooperate. How could that be possible? Lu Ming was not an easy person to talk to. Lu Ming took a step forward and continued to force his way toward the two experts. It's not that easy to kill us. You'll have to pay the price too. Let's fight. The two experts saw that Lu Ming was not going to let them go. They looked ferocious and went all out to attack Lu Ming. However, no matter how hard they tried, their cultivation was suppressed to the first Divine Emperor realm. They were at the same level as Lu Ming. Even though Lu Ming had just broken through, they were still far from him. After a few attacks, their bodies were almost torn apart. A dozen of their bones were broken. Ah! Let's die together. One of them went crazy. His body swelled up as if he was going to explode. Lu Ming quickly retreated. Boom! A terrifying explosion sounded as the man exploded. A terrifying strength swept in all directions. The destructive strength was not only aimed at Lu Ming, but also at the others, including the battle god Yuan and the other two experts. The explosion of such an expert was indeed terrifying. Lu Ming had retreated in time, but he was still injured. His chest and abdomen were in tatters and many of his bones were broken. However, those injuries were nothing to Lu Ming. He was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the other hand, the expert who besieged Lu Ming together with this person was not so lucky. He was directly engulfed by the destructive power and was blasted into smithereens. At the same time, the two experts who were fighting against the battle god Yuan were slightly further away, so they were less affected. However, they were also seriously injured. The battle god Yuan was also injured, but his injuries were much lighter. Battle 18 strikes. The battle god Yuan did not care about his injuries at all. As soon as he retreated, he attacked again. His fingers were like swords as he attacked continuously. Poof! The two experts were already seriously injured and dispirited. At that moment, they could not block the attacks of the battle god Yuan. They were directly killed by the battle god Yuan. Now, only Lu Ming and the battle god Yuan were left on the peak of the dark pit demon mountain. Ha ha ha, in the end, only the two of us are left. Just nice, I can use you as a stepping stone to become an invincible king and break through the king realm. The battle god Yuan looked at Lu Ming, his battle intent was burning fiercely. At the same time, he was still absorbing the energy of the crystals to stabilize his divine emperor realm cultivation. Of course, Lu Ming was also absorbing the life essence of the elven wood heart to stabilize his cultivation. Chapter 3967. Your words are exactly what I want to say. You are a rare opponent. I will go all out to make my name as invincible. Lu Ming said. Haha, you have confidence and strength. I like it. Since you are about to die in my hands, I still don't know your name. I want to see when someone like you appeared in the universe. Battle God Yuan said. To be honest, he had some sympathy for Lu Ming. At his level, it was too difficult to find a real opponent. Mu Yun. Lu Ming pondered for a moment and said the name Mu Yun. Mu Yun? Battle God Yuan revealed a thoughtful look and then said, not long ago, the person who was in an uproar with the elf princess Ling Yue was also called Mu Yun. Could it be you? That's right. Lu Ming nodded. So it's you. It seems that everyone has underestimated you. Battle God Yuan said. After saying this, the two fell into silence. However, their auras became stronger and stronger. Like waves, they met in the middle and collided fiercely. Boom! The collision of auras was like a stormy sea. In the next moment, two figures rushed towards each other. The two peerless monsters once again fought together, pushing their combat strength to the peak. Battle 18 strikes. Great God Wind technique, great shattering technique. Terrifying killing moves collided in the void. In an instant, the two had exchanged dozens of moves. After dozens of moves, the two retreated at the same time and stood on both sides of the pit, facing each other from a distance. The battle just now was still undecided. I really want to know what kind of power you control to be able to compete with my Battle Saint force? Battle God Yuan said, very curious. As long as you can defeat me, I will naturally tell you. Lu Ming said. Very well, my curiosity will soon be realized. Battle God Yuan was still very confident. For example, geniuses like Lu Ming and Battle God Yuan had almost swept away all their opponents along the way. They had never met a worthy opponent at the same level and had developed the belief of being invincible. Even if they met an opponent now, they still had the belief of being invincible and believed that they could defeat their opponent. Their auras burst forth, and they were about to fight again. But at this moment, there was another change in the pit. With a loud explosion, a gust of Yin Qi rushed out. Along with this wave of Yin Qi, a figure rushed out. This figure was actually Yin Jioling. Previously, Yin Jioling only had his head left and rushed into the pit. But now, he had recovered and his body was intact. Furthermore, his aura was extremely terrifying. His entire body was covered in a dense murderous aura. It was possible to see the murderous aura slithering in and out of his mouth and nose like tiny snakes. His appearance was extremely strange. Kill! Yin Jioling landed next to the sinkhole and immediately let out a roar. He clapped his palms consecutively and a strong evil aura rushed out of his palms, turning into two pitch-black pythons that bit toward Lu Ming and fighting God Yuan respectively. The Yin Qi whistled, bringing with it a terrifying might, giving Lu Ming a sense of crisis. Boom! Lu Ming's palm was like a knife, slashing with all his strength. It collided with the python's head and there was a violent explosion. Suddenly, Lu Ming felt a cold and terrifying force rushing towards Lu Ming. Even the forbidden force could not completely block it. Lu Ming's body retreated rapidly. A layer of black qi appeared on the surface of his body. This time, the black qi was extremely strange, as if it was going to corrode Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body shook and the forbidden force in his cells burst out, shaking off the black qi. On the other side, Battle God Yuan was not much better. He was also repelled by the python. No, Yinjiuling's state is not right, Battle God Yuanwen shouted. He also found that Battle God Yuanwen's state was extremely strange, as if he was possessed by the devil. Moreover, in the King realm, their cultivation was suppressed to the first divine emperor layer. However, Yinjiuling was extremely terrifying. He repelled Lu Ming and Battle God Yuanwen with one move. Was Yinjiuling so strong? Impossible. In the entire primitive universe, no one at the same level could defeat the two of them in one move. He is no longer Yinjiuling. He has been possessed by the evil Yin Qi. Lu Ming said. He has been possessed by the evil Yin Qi with spiritual intelligence. Is there such a thing? No wonder he could come out alive after entering the sewer. Battle God Yuanwen suddenly realized. Yinjiuling was no longer an ordinary creature. It could be said that he had evil Yin Qi, so he could come out alive from the sewer. Die, die. While Lu Ming and Battle God Yuanwen were talking, Yinjiuling roared and launched an attack on Lu Ming and Battle God Yuanwen. Yinjiuling had swallowed a lot of evil Yin Qi in the sewer. Even if his cultivation was suppressed to the first divine emperor layer, he was still very terrifying. With a wave of his hand, the sky was full of evil Yin Qi. The dense evil Yin Qi between heaven and earth was also driven and turned into a terrifying attack, attacking Battle God Yuanwen. He's mine. Battle God Yuanwen shouted. His body was shrouded in purple divine light as he attacked Yinjiuling. He used his divine power to condense a purple halberd and used the halberd to perform the War 18 strikes, launching a fierce attack. The Battle 18 strikes of the Battle Saint tribe was an extremely terrifying secret technique. It could perfectly combine with the bloodline of the Battle Saint tribe, the Battle Saint body and the Battle Saint force of the Battle Saint tribe. It was very mysterious and there was no fixed technique. Every member of the Battle Saint tribe could practice it, but what they comprehended was different and the power was also very different. The Battle 18 strikes of the Battle God Yuanwen was undoubtedly very powerful. When the halberd struck down, heaven and earth trembled. Yinjiuling is my prey. I came here because I was chasing him. Lu Ming also shouted coldly. He jumped up and attacked Yinjiuling. All kinds of secret runes in his cells shone and turned into a dazzling light, forming a mysterious attack power that crushed Yinjiuling. Boom! Boom! The three experts started a peak battle. In the battle domain, terrifying rumbling sounds could be heard. Fortunately, this scene was isolated by the Battle King domain. Otherwise, it would definitely shake the entire universe. At this moment, Yinjiuling was so terrifying that it was a little strange. Lu Ming and Battle God Yuanwen joined forces, but they could only suppress him by a little. If they were alone, they might not be his opponent. What exactly is this baleful Yin Qi that has its own consciousness? It's just a possession, how can it be so terrifying? Lu Ming secretly asked Bone Demon. He was really shocked. It was just a wisp of baleful Yin Qi that had its own consciousness, but it actually made Yinjiuling so terrifying that he could fight against his taboo force and the Battle Saint force of Battle God Yuanwen. It didn't make sense. Moreover, Lu Ming also thought of another problem. The Heavenly Palace asked everyone to collect the baleful Yin Qi to register. They definitely had to collect the baleful Yin Qi. This showed that the baleful Yin Qi was somewhat extraordinary. Chapter 3968. Even the Heavenly Palace was collecting Yin Qi with spirituality. What was the secret behind this? You're right. Once the Yin Qi has spirituality, it's very extraordinary. It's very likely that it's related to a terrifying place. Guemo said. What terrifying place? Lu Ming asked. Dark Universe. Guemo said. Dark Universe? What's that? Lu Ming was curious. He had never heard of a dark universe. As for what it is, you will definitely know when you become a heavenly soldier. You will most likely come into contact with it personally. Even if I explain it now, you won't understand. Guemo said. Lu Ming could only suppress the curiosity in his heart and continue to fight with Yin Jioling. The three of them fought fiercely. However, Lu Ming and Battle God Yuan Wen teamed up and eventually gained the upper hand and slowly suppressed Yin Jioling. Boom! After hundreds of moves, Lu Ming hit Yin Jioling's head. Bang! A large part of Yin Jioling's head exploded and was full of cracks. However, with the Yin Qi running, Yin Jioling's head was quickly healing. However, there was still a bone bead that flew out from the place where it exploded. This was the bone bead left by Gu Mo, which sealed the ancient's secret technique and other demons' secret techniques. Previously, Gu Mo had sensed that the bone bead was in Yin Jioling's left head. Therefore, Lu Ming specifically targeted Yin Jioling's head. After hundreds of moves, Lu Ming finally seized the opportunity and blasted the bone bead out. The bone bead flew out and was caught by Lu Ming. Finally got it. Lu Ming showed a hint of joy and kept the bone bead in his storage ring. Roar! Yin Jioling let out an angry roar. The Yin Qi around the pit was controlled by him and rushed toward Lu Ming and Battle God Yuan Wen like waves. The reason why Yin Jioling was so strong was related to the environment here. Around the Dark Pit Demon Mountain, especially the peak of the Dark Pit Demon Mountain, the Yin Qi was too strong. Yin Jioling was like a fish in water here and could exert 120% of his strength. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming and Battle God Yuan Wen unleashed their killer moves, breaking through the layers of Yin Qi and attacking Yin Jioling. The three of them started fighting again. The battle between the three grew more intense. In the blink of an eye, another 200 moves had been exchanged. At this point in the battle, the three of them were all covered in blood, all of them injured. Purple blood, bright red blood, pitch black blood, 3 types of blood spilled out. The 3 strongest demonic geniuses fought each other crazily. Boundless energy had already accumulated in this region. Wang! All of a sudden, the Qingqing domain around the ditch shook violently. Outside, around Demon Mountain, many living beings who were watching suddenly became excited. The King realm is about to break. The cruel battle inside is about to end. Who will be able to come out alive? Is it the prodigy of the Azura clan or Yin Jioling? Or is it the battle god Yuanwen and that mysterious demon? I don't know what kind of cultivation level will be suppressed in the king's domain. If it's suppressed to the godly emperor layer, then the battle god Yuanwen and that mysterious genius will die. If that's really the case, then it's a pity. Those 2 peerless geniuses, the scene was filled with discussions. Many people were broadcasting the battle to the entire universe through the illusory divine jade. Countless people were watching the purple and red Qingqing domain nervously. Many of the major clans were extremely nervous. Because they had demonic geniuses inside. If they couldn't come out alive, it would be a great loss. Especially the Battle Saint tribe, they were the most nervous. The battle god Yuanwen's talent was too high. Even in the vast history of the Battle Saint tribe, he was one of the top geniuses. Once he reached the major success stage in the future, he would become a terrifying overlord of the universe, a character that could suppress an era. The strength of the Battle Saint tribe would also become stronger, suppressing the other top 10 tribes. If such a character died inside, it would be a pity. It would be an inestimable loss. Many of the major figures of the Battle Saint tribe were staring at the Qingqing domain through the illusory divine jade. The Sun Moon clan, Azura clan and other clans were also doing the same. Wang! Wang! The Qingqing domain vibrated more and more violently. Suddenly, with a loud boom, it exploded, turning into a rain of light and dissipating. When the Qing domain exploded, 3 figures flew out and continuously exchanged blows in the air. Boundless energy swept out in all directions, creating a terrifying scene. Someone is fighting. 3 people, why are there 3 people? Didn't they say that only the strongest King realm cultivators could come out? The scene was in an uproar. Even the ancient existence of the Buddha clan was stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect such a situation. Generally speaking, only the strongest king realm cultivator could escape from the King Qing domain and become an invincible king. Why are there 3 people coming out now? Who are they? Many people stared at them. Slowly, the rain of light dissipated and they found out who the 3 people were. It's the battle god Yuan Wen and Yin Jioling. The third one is that mysterious demonic genius. What a terrifying aura. The aura of the battle god Yuan Wen and the mysterious demonic genius have both reached the divine emperor realm. They broke through in such a short time. What's even more astonishing is that they joined hands to fight against Yin Jioling. How can Yin Jioling be so terrifying? When the 3 people were discovered, the entire universe was astonished. First of all, the battle god Yuan Wen and Lu Ming had broken through. Then, the 2 of them joined hands to fight against Yin Jioling. That was even more astonishing. How could Yin Jioling be so strong? Damn it! Damn it! Shouted the strong cultivators of the Azura clan and the other clans. Their geniuses hadn't come out yet, so they must have died. Boom! At this moment, the aura on Yin Jioling's body suddenly became violent and rose rapidly. Without the suppression of the King Qing domain, his cultivation level was recovering. First godly emperor layer, second godly emperor layer, third godly emperor layer, fourth godly emperor layer. In a flash, Yin Jioling's cultivation level rose to the fourth godly emperor layer. Before, when the King Qing domain had just formed, Yin Jioling's cultivation level had only reached the third godly emperor layer. Now, he had broken through to the third godly emperor layer. That kind of breakthrough speed was earth-shattering. After recovering his cultivation level, Yin Jioling's fighting strength had reached the peak. Die! Shouted Yin Jioling. He wanted to kill Lu Ming and the battle god Yuan Wen in one fell swoop. Without the King Qing domain, you'll die. Shouted the battle god Yuan Wen. A purple golden halberd appeared in his hand. One could see that the end of the battle halberd was missing a corner. However, a terrifying aura erupted from the battle halberd. The violent aura directly split apart the battle god Yuan Wen's shockwave that was rushing over. That was the trump card of the battle god Yuan Wen. It was also his trump card. Whoosh! The purple golden halberd turned into a huge mountain and slashed towards Yin Jioling. At the same time, Lu Ming took out the zephyr bead. A scorching tornado swept towards Yin Jioling. Chapter 3969. Lu Ming and battle god Yuan Wen used their weapons at the same time. The terrifying power of the 2 weapons instantly shrouded Yin Jioling. Yin Jioling roared and unleashed his full strength. Evil Yin Qi soared to the sky and fought against the 2 weapons. However, after Lu Ming and the battle god Yuan Wen reached the divine emperor realm, the power that they could unleash when controlling the big killing weapon was stronger. After a series of collisions, Yin Jioling's protective Yin Qi was forcibly broken. His body was cut by the strong wind and was almost cut in half by the purple golden halberd. Yin Jioling's body was blasted back. Roar! Yin Jioling roared angrily. The rich sinister aura in the pit converged toward him. His injuries were recovering rapidly. He kept roaring and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. He kept glancing at Lu Ming and the battle god Yuan Wen with his tyrannical eyes. You, too, die, Yin Jioling roared intermittently, then he turned around and left, turning into a stream of Yin Qi. In a flash, the space was broken, and he disappeared in a blink of an eye. His speed was amazing. After all, Lu Ming and the battle god Yuan Wen's cultivation were only at the first level of the divine emperor realm. They could only injure Yin Jioling by relying on the big killer weapon. However, in terms of speed, they were far inferior. They could only watch Yin Jioling escape. Wait until my cultivation improves, then I will kill you with one hand. Battle god Yuan Wen said disdainfully. Then, he looked at Lu Ming with a strong battle intent. Mu Yun, you changed your appearance because you don't want others to know. I won't tell anyone, but our battle is not over yet. We will fight next time. Battle God Yuan Wen transmitted his voice to Lu Ming. Then, he turned around and went down the dark pit Demon Mountain. He had already obtained a wisp of evil Yin Qi, so he didn't need to stay here. Lu Ming smiled and didn't care. Why would he be afraid of others' challenge? To be honest, Battle God Yuan Wen was a very good opponent. Lu Ming had never met such an opponent. Having an opponent was a kind of pressure and also a kind of motivation that could promote him to keep moving forward. If you want to fight, I am always ready. Lu Ming replied with a voice transmission and then went down the mountain from another direction. The purpose of this trip was finally completed. The ancient secret skill left by the bone demon and a wisp of evil Yin Qi with spirituality. Although the process was quite tortuous, it was a complete success. The next step was to go to the City of Heaven, where the dreamy heavenly palace was located. The dreamy heavenly palace was the real core of the dreamy heavenly palace. It was difficult for outsiders to go there. The Dream Sky City was an incomparably majestic and boundless ancient city. It was suspended in the starry sky of the universe, with the sun, moon, and stars revolving around it. One could see how huge it was. Lu Ming spent several months before he arrived at the Dream Sky City. He could not help marveling at the ancient city from afar. The dreamy heavenly palace was surrounded by the sun, moon, and stars. These sun, moon, and stars actually formed a formation. Once it was attacked, the astral formation would activate and unleash a devastating attack. In addition, the dreamy heavenly palace was shrouded in layers of multicolored light, which looked like a dream. There was only one gate in the dreamy heavenly palace. Lu Ming flew toward the gate. In front of the gate, there was a 300 million mile long avenue that extended all the way to the gate. From afar, one could see countless creatures walking on the avenue. Most of these creatures were in human form, but there were also many who revealed their true form. Some were as small as ants, and some were as big as mountains. Fortunately, the avenue was big enough to accommodate these creatures no matter how big they were. It's really spectacular, Lu Ming exclaimed. When he approached the path, he felt a strong pressure acting on his body. In the dreamy heavenly palace, one couldn't fly, so Lu Ming could only land on the avenue and walk into the dreamy heavenly palace. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't be able to walk 300 million miles even if they walked for a lifetime. Of course, they weren't ordinary people. Lu Ming took a step forward and moved 100 miles away. His figure was like a ray of light as he walked toward the gate. In fact, the others seemed to be walking, but their speed wasn't slow at all. Therefore, it looked normal. Even so, Lu Ming walked for a full day before he walked through the avenue and entered the city gate. Behind the city gate, there wasn't any avenue, but a huge platform. The platform was very high, and standing on the platform, one could see the bustling streets and various ancient buildings in the distance. Come, come, the dreams sail to the Aquamoon Heavenly Palace, only 10 Emperor-level divine pills per person. Go to the dreams sail to the number 1 auction house in Sky City, 15 Emperor-level divine pills per person. Those who want to register for the Heavenly Soldier competition, go to the registration area, 10 Emperor-level divine pills per person. As soon as Lu Ming stepped onto the platform, he heard shouts and shouts. It turned out that on the platform, there were sailboats floating in the air. So, we need to ride these sailboats, Lu Ming was enlightened. Indeed, the Dream Sky City was too big, and one couldn't fly. It would take a long time to go from one place to another, no matter how fast one was. And this kind of dream sail could fly at an extremely fast speed. Therefore, most people would ride this kind of dream sail. However, the price was too expensive, starting from Emperor-level divine pills. Emperor-level divine pellets were useful for divine emperors. Moreover, there were 10 of them at once. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to afford it. But here, one had to ride it even if they didn't want to. If they walked, they would die. Lu Ming stepped forward and came under one of the dream sails. The dream sail was very big, at least 10,000 people could ride it at once. Brother, you're too big. can you please shrink a little? Under the dream sail, a bearded man said to an elephant whose body was as white as jade. This elephant was 10,000 zhang tall, so it was too big to fit into the dream sail. Okay. The white jade elephant nodded and shrunk into its human form. Then, it handed over 10 emperor-level divine pills and boarded the dream sail. Little brother, 10 emperor-level divine pills, go to the registration area of the heavenly soldier. Then, the bearded middle-aged man stopped Lu Ming. Here. Lu Ming took out 10 emperor-level divine pills and gave them to the man. Lu Ming had killed many divine emperors, so he still had some emperor-level divine pills on him. Please, I hope you pass the assessment and become a heavenly soldier. The burly man with a full beard smiled and let Lu Ming board the dream sail. After boarding the dream sail, Lu Ming found a place to sit down and closed his eyes to rest. Set sail. About 2 hours later, a shout came out, and the dream sail was covered with a layer of white light. With a swoosh, it rushed out, 100 times faster than walking. Chapter 3970. Lu Ming stood up and watched from the side of the dream sail. On the dream sail, the scenery of Dream Sky City was unobstructed. He could see that the streets below were crisscrossing, and it was very prosperous. No one was flying in the sky. There were only other dream sails sailing in the sky like giant birds, going back and forth to various parts of Dream Sky City. That's the angel race. And the one full of blood chi is the blood race. The Buddha race. Lu Ming swept his gaze across and saw various clans on the streets below. He even saw many of the top 10 clans. Dream Sky City was indeed the heavenly city of the Dream Sky Heavenly Palace. It gathered the elites of various races in the universe, and many of them permanently settled in Dream Sky City. On the dream sail, many people, like Lu Ming, had come to Dream Sky City for the first time. They stood on the dream sail and looked around curiously. The dream sail was very fast, but Dream Sky City was just too big. Even with the dream sail speed, it still took an entire day to reach the registration area for the divine soldier. The registration place was in front of a majestic palace. At the moment, it was already crowded. There were no less than thousands of people. In front of the palace, there were 9 light doors. In front of the doors, some elites in armor were checking and registering. We've arrived at the registration place. You can disembark. The bearded man said. Everyone nodded and jumped down from the dream sail. They landed in front of the palace, then walked to the 9 light doors and began to line up. Lu Ming also walked to a light door and began to line up. At the same time, he looked around. A young man walked up to a few experts in armor and registered their names. Then, he took out a storage ring. A strand of baleful yin chi flew out from the storage ring. It was a baleful yin chi that had its own spirituality. One of the armored experts nodded and put away the wisp of baleful yin chi. Then another person took out a jade tablet and handed it to the young man. Enter the light door and be tested. A burly man in armor said. These armored men were the heavenly soldiers of the heavenly palace. The young man seemed a little nervous and hesitant. In the end, he clenched his teeth and stepped into the glowing door. Wang. When this person walked into the door of light suddenly emitted a dazzling light. How dare you? How dare you deceive the heavenly palace? You deserve death. A heavenly soldier shouted. His aura was wild and his killing intent was like a knife. I'm innocent. The baleful yin chi was indeed obtained by me. The young man's expression changed drastically as he roared. Presumptuous. How dare you quibble? These 9 light gates were created by the heavenly palace, who was proficient in the art of divination. As long as you step into the light gate, as long as you don't personally obtain the evil yin chi, the light gate can be divined. You've committed a crime upon a crime. A heavenly soldier shouted. Plop. The young man knelt down. His face was deathly pale as he shouted, "Please spare my life. Master, please spare my life." I was confused for a moment. "It's my first offense, please spare my life. The Heavenly Palace has already informed us, but you still want to deceive the Heavenly Palace. Unforgivable," shouted the Heavenly Soldier coldly. Swish. When the young man saw that the Heavenly Soldier wasn't going to spare him, he turned into a beam of light and ran away. Without a doubt, this young man was also a top genius. He had already broken through to the third godly emperor layer. He was extremely strong. He used his full strength and his speed was astonishing. "You want to die?" said a middle-aged Heavenly Soldier coldly. He raised his spear and threw it at the young man. Whoosh! A spear silhouette streaked across the sky and moved as fast as lightning towards the young man. Shouted the young man furiously. He used all his strength to resist, but it was all in vain. His attacks and defenses couldn't withstand a single attack from the middle-aged Heavenly Soldier. Slash! The young man's head was pierced through and he died. "Someone come and take him away," said the middle-aged Heavenly Soldier coldly. Someone immediately came and took the young man's corpse away. How strong! Many people were astonished. That middle-aged Heavenly Soldier looked ordinary, but he was terrifyingly strong. He was at least at the top of the godly emperor layer. I heard that when one first becomes a celestial soldier, the celestial palace will bestow rewards. Everyone will reap great benefits and their strength will soar. In addition, by participating in various missions in the celestial soldier, one can obtain large amounts of rewards and rapidly increase one's strength. Indeed, the Heavenly Palace has the best resources in the universe. No other clan can compete with them. I can't wait. Many people were astonished, but at the same time, they were whispering to each other. The Heavenly Palace had unimaginable resources. If you practiced in the Heavenly Palace, your cultivation would increase quickly. That was why so many geniuses wanted to join the Heavenly Palace and become Heavenly Soldiers. Even the top 10 clans had many geniuses who could become Heavenly Soldiers. That was because even the top 10 clans did not have as many resources as the Heavenly Palace. I'll say it one last time. If you didn't get the Dark Yin Chi by yourself, but bought it, or given it by someone else, or even an elder, please leave now. The Heavenly Palace will not pursue the matter. However, if you're discovered after registration, you'll be sentenced to death. Shouted the middle-aged Heavenly Soldier. Many people were astonished, but no one left. In fact, there were very few people who thought they were lucky. That was because history had already taught them a lesson. No one could deceive the Heavenly Palace. Those who thought they were lucky and tried to get away with it all ended up in a miserable state. Every time, there were very few people who thought they were lucky. Most of the time, there was no one. This time, one of them was discovered. He was lucky. The registration process continued, and no one was found who tried to get away with it. Bone Demon, can that gate find out that I have a forbidden body? Lu Ming secretly asked Bone Demon. A forbidden body was a great enemy of the Heavenly Palace. If it was discovered, Lu Ming would be in trouble. To be honest, sneaking into the Heavenly Palace was like entering a tiger's den. Lu Ming was still a little nervous. Although Fei Huang told him that it was fine. Don't worry. A forbidden body can't be seen on the surface. Even the forbidden power can't be seen. On the surface, it's no different from other divine powers. Only those who have come into contact with your taboo energy will be able to sense it. So, don't worry, said Bone Demon. Lu Ming nodded and felt slightly relieved. Soon, it was Lu Ming's turn. What's your name? Where are you from? Which force are you from? Asked a Heavenly Soldier. Mu Yun, from the Fengdu Sword sect of the Iron Sea Star Zone. Replied Lu Ming. He's Mu Yun. When the surrounding people heard Lu Ming's name, they were all shocked and looked at Lu Ming curiously. Because of Ling Yue, Lu Ming could be said to have become a famous person in the universe. Chapter 3971. Many people were secretly sizing up Lu Ming, especially some of the young geniuses. Their eyes were filled with intense hostility. Ling Yu Wei was one of the 20 Pearls of the universe and the princess of the elf clan. There were many people pursuing her, including countless divine emperor realm geniuses. And now, the relationship between Lu Ming and Ling Yu Wei had been made public. Who knew how many people wanted to make a move against him? Lu Ming looked down, as if he didn't care. There was nothing he could do. Ever since he had Ling Yu Wei as his fiancée, he had expected this to happen. However, Lu Ming had never been afraid of challenges from others. If he really couldn't avoid it, then so be it. He would just treat it as a form of training. However, the heavenly soldier was expressionless, as if he had never heard of Lu Ming's name. He took out a jade tablet and registered it. I hope the information you said is true. You should know that the Heavenly Palace will thoroughly investigate your background. The heavenly soldier reminded him. Of course. Lu Ming nodded. This was the reason why he joined the Fengdu sword sect. Where's the spiritual baleful Yin Qi? Take it out. Another heavenly soldier said. Lu Ming took out the baleful Yin Qi. The other party checked it for a moment and kept it. Then, the heavenly soldier from before handed the jade tablet to Lu Ming. Enter the gate of light. Only by passing through the gate of light can you proceed to the next round of the examination. The heavenly soldier said. Lu Ming took the jade token and stepped into the door of light. There was no reaction from the door of light. Since there was no reaction, he had passed. You've registered successfully. Come with me. Behind the gate of light, another heavenly soldier said to Lu Ming. Lu Ming nodded and followed the heavenly soldier into the palace. After passing through the palace, there was a huge plaza behind it. The plaza was huge. At this moment, there were already a lot of people in the plaza. You've only registered successfully. If you want to become a heavenly soldier, you still need to go through a few rounds of assessment. I don't know what the specific assessment is yet. Just wait here. When it's time for your assessment, someone will naturally call you. The heavenly soldier said. Thank you. Lu Ming cupped his fists. The celestial soldier nodded and left. Lu Ming found a random place to sit down and wait. Not long after, an old man in a snow-white robe and a jade crown flew over. The heavenly official is here. Looks like someone else has a mission. Someone whispered. Many people looked at the sky official. Every time the sky official came, he would announce a few people to take part in the examination. Not everyone would participate in the examination together. Furthermore, the contents of the examination would be different for many people. Meng Jia of the Iron Armor clan, Shen Fei of the Fei Yuan clan, the 12 of you, follow me to participate in the assessment. Sky official rode. Immediately, 12 people stepped forward. The majority of these 12 people were young, but there were also a few middle-aged burly men or old men. The sky official waved his hand, and a beam of light swept up the 12 people and left. In Dream Sky City, the heavenly officials and heavenly soldiers were naturally able to fly. If they couldn't fly, how could they carry out their mission? The sky official took 12 people away. Not long after, another heavenly official arrived and took away 12 people. In this way, another heavenly official would come and take away a group of people. Not all 12 people were taken away. Sometimes, 15 people were taken away, sometimes over 100. The number was uncertain. Lu Ming roughly understood that the Heavenly Palace's examination was divided into many missions. Each group of people would complete one mission. Lu Ming waited patiently. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. The people in the square came and went, and came again. Finally, Iron Sea Star Zone's Fengdu Sword Sex Mu Yun, Ziying Races Zi Meng, the 12 of you, follow me to complete the examination. A white-haired heavenly official announced. It's finally my turn. Lu Ming smiled and stepped forward. 11 other people also stepped forward. The white-haired heavenly official waved his hand, and a beam of energy swept up Lu Ming's group and took them in a certain direction. On the way, Lu Ming's group of 12 people looked at each other. Among them, there were 7 young people who looked like they were in their 20s. There were men and women. Among the other 5, there were 3 middle-aged men and 2 old men. Their cultivation levels aren't low. Lu Ming looked at them and realized that their cultivation levels were very high. Apart from him, the weakest one had the strength of the 3rd godly emperor layer. The strongest one was an old man. He didn't release his chi, so he couldn't guess. But he had to have the strength of the 6th godly emperor layer. He had the lowest cultivation level, the 1st godly emperor layer. The others glanced at Lu Ming, but they just glanced at him and didn't pay him any attention. Even though Mu Yun was famous in the universe, the real strong cultivators didn't take him seriously. After all, back then, Lu Ming had only been a quasi-emperor layer cultivator. Now, it seemed that even though Lu Ming had broken through to the godly emperor layer, he had just broken through to the 1st godly emperor layer. They weren't ordinary people, so they didn't take a cultivator of the 1st godly emperor layer seriously. They glanced at each other and tried to remember each other's faces. After a short time, they arrived in front of a wormhole. They stepped into the wormhole, and in the next moment, they arrived on a planet with life. "Alright, now I'll announce your tasks," said the sky official. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts and began to listen attentively. This is the group of Flying Cloud Star Area. The group of Flying Cloud Star Area is controlled by 2 influential groups, the Flying Stars Sect and the Moon Cloud Pavilion. However, the Heavenly Palace has found out that the Flying Stars Sect doesn't respect the Heavenly Palace. They might be in contact with rebels. Therefore, your task is to help the Moon Cloud Pavilion destroy the Flying Stars Sect, said the sky official. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Everybody was astonished. Their task was to destroy a powerful influential group of the universe. What made them even more confused was that the reason for destroying the Flying Stars Sect was that they didn't respect the Heavenly Palace and were in contact with rebels. What was a rebel? Wasn't the primitive universe under the control of the Heavenly Palace? It was the era of the Heavenly Palace. The Heavenly Palace was supreme. How could there be rebels? It seemed like there were many secrets in the primitive universe. Lu Ming's eyes flashed and thoughts flashed across his mind. He knew some secrets. The Heavenly Palace was not without enemies, such as the Life Spirit Heavenly Court, the Dragon Clan, and especially the family of Xia Nianqing's previous life, the Flying Phoenix Clan, and others seemed to be enemies. Who was the rebel the sky official was talking about? Was it the Tang clan that supported Xia Nianqing? Or was it someone else? Master Sky Official, how strong is the Flying Star Sect? What's the cultivation level of their strongest cultivator? Asked an old man respectfully. I know you want to ask. The Flying Stars Sect is quite strong. The Patriarch is a cultivator of the 9th Godly Emperor layer. Below him, there are more than a dozen cultivators of the 8th Godly Emperor layer, said the Sky Official. Chapter 3972. The Sky Official's words caused everyone to pale. There are cultivators of the 9th Godly Emperor layer. There are more than a dozen cultivators of the 8th Godly Emperor layer, shouted a few people. The others pulled long faces. How could they kill a cultivator of the 8th or 9th Godly Emperor layer? How could they kill him? Lu Ming was the only one who looked calm. I didn't ask you to go to the Flying Star Sect and destroy them. I asked you to help the Yunhua Pavilion destroy the Flying Star Sect. The Yunhua Pavilion isn't much weaker than the Flying Star Sect. They also have cultivators of the 9th Godly Emperor layer, said the Tian official. Only then did everyone relax. The Yunhua Pavilion also had cultivators of the 9th Godly Emperor layer. You have 1 year. You must complete the mission within 1 year. Also, only 2 of the 12 of you can pass the test. The 2 of you who have contributed the most and performed the best will pass the test. The rest will be eliminated," said the Tian official. Everybody's expression changed drastically. The 12 of them had to destroy the Flying Star sect within 1 year. Even if they managed to destroy the Flying Star sect, only the 2 who had contributed the most would be able to finish the task. That way, the task would be much more difficult. Not only did they have to destroy the Flying Star sect, but they also had to compete with each other. The 12 of them glanced at each other. Some of them looked murderous. Nobody knew what they were thinking. "All right, I'll take you to the Yunhua Pavilion." Heavenly Official Path then led Lu Ming and the 12 of them to break the void and leave. The Sky Official's cultivation base was terrifyingly profound, surpassing the God Emperor level at the very least. With the 12 of them, he was able to break through the void. Before long, they arrived at an enormous planet. As soon as they arrived, a group of people flew out to welcome them. "Welcome, emissaries from the Heavenly Palace." A middle-aged man, leading a group of people, bowed and saluted. That middle-aged man's chi was extremely powerful. He was the leader of the Yunhua Pavilion, a cultivator of the 9th Godly Emperor layer. However, that cultivator of the 9th Godly Emperor layer was extremely respectful in front of the Sky Official, like a little puppy. The Tian official said expressionlessly, "Take these 12 people with you. They'll help you destroy the Flying Star sect." "Roger." The pavilion master of the Pavilion of Clouds and Rain said respectfully. The Sky Official nodded. He turned around and took a step forward. The void rippled and his figure disappeared. "Everyone, please follow me and stay here. We'll discuss the matter of dealing with the Flying Star sect another day." Of course, he was not as respectful as he was to the Sky Official, but he was still polite. Everyone followed the Yunhua Pavilion master and the others into the planet below. They arrived at a palace and stayed there temporarily. Yunhua Pavilion, in the Great Meeting Hall. The pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion and some other upper echelons of the Yunhua Pavilion were gathered together for a meeting. "Leader, the Heavenly Palace only sent 12 people. The strongest one among them only has the strength of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. Most of them have the strength of the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and even the 1st Godly Emperor layer. How could they destroy the Flying Star sect? Indeed, I don't think we can defeat a cultivator of the 8th Godly Emperor layer. We've been fighting against the Flying Star sect for a while now, and we're at a disadvantage." Many people in the Yunhua Pavilion were complaining. "Don't underestimate those people," said the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion. Everybody quieted down. "The Heavenly Palace is recruiting celestial soldiers now. Those people must have signed up for the exam," said the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion. "Leader, you mean there are some incredible geniuses among them?" asked someone. "That's right. Anyone who signs up for the Heavenly Soldier assessment is not weak. Even the older ones have strong combat strength. Cultivation is not the only criterion. Since the Heavenly Palace sent them here, they must think that there is someone who can help us destroy the Flying Star sect. Otherwise, they would not have sent them here. The Heavenly Palace must have paid special attention to the people they send. Don't underestimate any of those 12 people," said the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion. "Yes." Everybody nodded. In the Yunhua Pavilion, Lu Ming took out some weapons and gave them to Qiu Qiu. Qiu Qiu had a huge appetite. Every once in a while, it would eat a batch of weapons or high-level metal materials. After feeding Qiu Qiu, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged and focused on cultivating. He had just broken through to the Divine Emperor realm. He had to make the best use of his time to stabilize his cultivation. The day passed quickly. On the second day, the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion summoned them for a meeting. "Everyone, the strength of the Yunhua Pavilion and the Flying Star sect are about the same. In terms of high-end combat strength, we are slightly weaker than them. However, I believe that with everyone's help, we will be able to destroy the Flying Star sect very quickly. said the pavilion master of the Yunhua pavilion. Everybody nodded. They knew that the pavilion master of the Yunhua pavilion was just being polite. As expected, the pavilion master of the Yunhua pavilion continued, the main battlefield between the Yunhua pavilion and the Flying Star sect will be the Flying Cloud continent. That is a continent floating in the void. However, now is not the time for a decisive battle. We need to take over a few important planets of the Flying Star sect. These places all have wormholes. Once we take over these places, the Flying Star sect's flexibility will be greatly reduced. What do you want us to do, Pavilion Master? Asked an old man from the group of 12. He had the strength of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. He was the strongest cultivator among Lu Ming's group. Alright, I will split you up. You will go to those important places and cooperate with the Yunhua pavilion. We will take those places, said the pavilion master of the Yunhua pavilion. Everybody nodded. They had no objections. Very quickly, the pavilion master of the Yunhua pavilion divided them into 6 groups of 2 and they went to 6 different places. Lu Ming and a young man in blue clothes were in the same group. The young man glanced at Lu Ming indifferently. He didn't take Lu Ming seriously. On the contrary, he was happy. Lu Ming was in the same group as him, so Lu Ming couldn't compete with him. He had heard of Mu Yun. Even though Mu Yun was a terrifying cultivator, he wasn't weak either. He had already broken through to the top of the 4th Godly Emperor layer. He could fight against ordinary cultivators of the 5th Godly Emperor layer. Lu Ming only had the strength of the 1st Godly Emperor layer, so he didn't take him seriously. After splitting up, there were naturally people who would lead them out. Lu Ming and the others were going to a place called Kuandong Planet. The Yunhua pavilion had an army there. Lu Ming and the young man in blue clothes went through a wormhole and arrived on Kuandong Planet. On the way, Lu Ming learned the young man's name. His name was Su Yi, and he was from the Heavenly Eagles clan. The Heavenly Eagles clan was ranked 137th in the list of the 10,000 clans of ancient desolation. Su Yi was also a famous genius of the Heavenly Eagles clan. He was a godly emperor and could fight against cultivators of higher cultivation levels. He was extremely talented. Chapter 3973. As soon as Lu Ming and Su Yi arrived at Kuandong Planet, they saw a general in armor leading an army to welcome them. The 2 of them were welcomed into a military camp. Brother Su, please have a seat. The general in armor was called Brother Hao. He was very polite to Su Yi and led him to the seat of honor. However, he was much colder to Lu Ming. Su Yi had the strength of the top of the 4th Godly Emperor layer, and he looked very young. He was definitely a genius. Such a person would be very beneficial to Kuandong Planet. However, Lu Ming was only at the 1st level of the Divine Emperor realm. In their opinion, he was dispensable. He would not be of any help to the battle on Kuandong Planet. He didn't understand why the Heavenly Palace had sent a cultivator of the 1st Godly Emperor layer to Kuandong Planet. He was just a hindrance. Of course, he could only suppress these doubts and dissatisfaction in his heart. He did not dare to voice them out. However, he could not help but express his dissatisfaction through his actions. For example, he was not very enthusiastic towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming noticed that, but he didn't take it to heart. He just sat down and drank. Brother Hao, what's the situation on Kuandong Planet? Su Yi casually sat at the head of the table and asked. Then, a beautiful maid poured wine for him. The east side of Kuandong Planet is occupied by the Yunhua Pavilion and the west side is occupied by the Fei Xing sect. But the most important wormhole is in the west. We've attacked it a few times, but we haven't been able to take it, said Brother Hao. What kind of strong cultivators do they have? Asked Su Yi. They have 2 cultivators of the top of the 5th Godly Emperor layer. They're very strong. We only have 2 cultivators of the top of the 5th Godly Emperor layer. We don't have the advantage. The other strong cultivators are fighting everywhere, especially in Feiyan. It's difficult to send them out, said Brother Hao. Only the top of the 5th godly emperor layer? That's easy. After Su Yi heard this, he revealed a confident expression. Brother Hao's eyes twinkled. Do you have a solution? Of course, if they only have the strength of the 5th godly emperor layer, I'm strong enough to fight against them, Su Yi said proudly. Brother Hao was amazed and said, Prince Su Yi only has the strength of the 4th godly emperor layer, but he can compete with cultivators of the 5th godly emperor layer. I wouldn't dare. Of course, that's not enough. I have a secret treasure that can injure cultivators of the 5th godly emperor layer. With that, I can kill cultivators of the 5th godly emperor layer as easily as killing chickens. Su Yi said he didn't dare, but he looked very proud of himself. At the same time, he said he had a trump card which could only be used once. It could injure cultivators of the 5th godly emperor layer. Hearing that, the smile on Brother Hao's face grew wider. At the side, the others also flattered Su Yi. From beginning to end, they had neglected Lu Ming. A cultivator of the 1st godly emperor layer couldn't do anything. Besides, he couldn't become a celestial soldier, so why should they care? It's not the right time to attack. We'll wait for the pavilion master's order. As soon as the pavilion master gives the order, we'll immediately launch an attack and take down the entire Kuandong planet in one fell swoop, Brother Hao said. Su Yi nodded and ended the meeting. Lu Ming didn't say anything. He just sat there and slowly sipped his wine. To be honest, the wine was really good. Lu Ming couldn't help but drink a few more cups. Brother Hao and the others disdained Lu Ming even more. They thought that Lu Ming knew that he was weak, so he didn't say anything. After the meeting, Lu Ming went back to his room and sat down cross-legged. A bone pearl appeared in his hand. That bone pearl was the container that Gu Mo used to seal the ancient secret skills and other secret skills of the demon path. Before, Lu Ming was in a hurry, so he didn't have time to open it. Now, he had time to open it. According to Gu Mo's instructions, Lu Ming used a special talisman to inject it into the bone pearl. After a short time, the bone pearl emitted dazzling lights. Then, talismans flew out of it. There were at least a few hundred talismans. Most of them were black talismans, but one of them was black gold in color. It was very eye-catching. Lu Ming grabbed the black gold jade talisman with his hand and sank his spiritual sense into it. One of the 3,000 ancient secret skills, the Great Demonic Sword Technique. Lu Ming whispered, but to be honest, he was a little disappointed. The Great Demonic Sword Technique was also an offensive secret skill. However, Lu Ming already had the Great Shattering Technique and the Great God Wind Technique. Another one wouldn't be of much help to him. However, he still had to cultivate. No matter what kind of secret skill it was, Lu Ming had to cultivate it. This was to lay the foundation for his future. However, it wasn't easy to cultivate the ancient secret skill. Lu Ming planned to find a chance to cultivate it later. Lu Ming memorized the Great Demonic Sword Technique and then looked at the other secret skills. There were more than 300 demon secret skills. Moreover, Lu Ming hadn't cultivated many demon secret skills before. Therefore, there were 300 demon secret skills that Lu Ming hadn't cultivated before. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He collected all of them and would cultivate them when he had time. After collecting them, Lu Ming took out some elven wood hearts and began to absorb them to strengthen his foundation. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. After a month of cultivation, Lu Ming's cultivation level was completely stabilized. He had completely stabilized at the 1st godly emperor layer. Compared to when I just broke through, my strength has increased by 50%. Lu Ming smiled. When he fought against Yin Jioling in the Dark Pit Demon Mountain, he had just broken through and his strength hadn't reached the peak yet. Now, his cultivation level had completely stabilized and his strength had reached the peak. He was 50% stronger than when he was in the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. Now, he was confident that he wouldn't be so embarrassed if he fought against Yin Jioling again. He alone was enough to fight against him. he didn't need to team up with fighting god Yuanwen. After stabilizing his cultivation level, Lu Ming planned to start cultivating the demon's secret skills. However, at this time, Lu Ming received news from Brother Hao that they were about to launch an attack. He could only cultivate the secret skills later. Lu Ming left his residence and went to the barracks with Su Yi to set off with the army. This time, we have the help of the emissary of the Heavenly Palace. We will definitely destroy the Flying Star sect. Now, let's go and take Kuandong Star. Brother Hao shouted. Victory! At least 100,000 soldiers shouted. Swoosh, the 100,000 soldiers were all experts. They turned into rainbow lights and flew to the west of Kuandong Star. It was a very spectacular sight. They were very fast and soon arrived at the west of Kuandong Star. However, there was a strong divine light flickering in front of them, illuminating the starry sky. In front of them, there was a large army blocking their way. This army was naturally the army of the Flying Star sect. They had already known that the Yunhua Pavilion was about to attack and had made defensive preparations in advance. Chapter 3974. The Flying Star sect's army was lined up neatly, blotting out the sky and blotting out the earth. There were at least 100,000 of them. The two armies hadn't even collided yet, but their terrifying chi had already collided. Boom! The atmosphere shook violently as a terrifying crack appeared in the sky. It looked like a ferocious mouth had appeared in the sky. Die! Destroy the Flying Star sect! Shouted Brother Hao furiously. He took the lead and charged towards the Flying Star sect's army. Die! Shouted the Yunhua Pavilion's army. All sorts of godly lights dazzled as all sorts of weapons rose up in the air. In the end, they turned into a terrifying force and moved towards the Flying Star sect's army. However, the Flying Star sect's army also released all sorts of attacks and collided with the Yunhua Pavilion's army. After a series of explosions, the distance between the two armies was reduced. Horrible shrieks filled the air as the two armies collided. At least a few hundred people were killed. Blood dyed the sky red. Die! There was a long howl that was exceptionally sharp and bright. Su Yi was surrounded by dazzling godly lights. In front of him, 3 swords were floating. Those 3 swords looked like the feathers of an eagle. Actually, they were made from the feathers of an extremely strong cultivator of the Heavenly Eagle clan. They were extremely sharp. The illusory figure brushed past the 3 divine swords and continued its killing spree. Every time it flickered, a few people would be pierced by the divine swords or split into 2 halves. Su Yi moved forwards and killed dozens of strong cultivators of the Flying Star sect. No matter if they were cultivators of the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd godly emperor layer, they were all killed instantly. Of course, the strong cultivators of the Flying Star sect noticed him. Little boy, die! Shouted a cultivator of the 4th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect. He stared at Su Yi and attacked him. That person was surrounded by starlight. He waved his hand and starlight turned into a sword which descended from the sky and pierced towards Su Yi's head. You want to die? Su Yi smiled coldly. He waved his sword and the starlight battle sword broke apart. Then, his 3 swords shot out and appeared in front of the cultivator of the 4th godly emperor layer of the Flying Star sect. The cultivator of the Flying Star sect was astonished. He hastily used all sorts of skills to block the attack, but it was useless. Slash! Su Yi's battle sword directly pierced through all of his defenses, piercing 3 transparent holes in his dantian, chest, and glabella. The cultivator of the 4th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect had died instantly. How strong! When the people of the Yunhua Pavilion saw how strong Su Yi was, instantly killing people of the same level as him, their morale soared. Ao roared and charged at Su Yi. Brother Hao's Chi, L. Su Yi's battle prowess was indeed strong. It was not wrong to say that he could fight those above his level. At this moment, Lu Ming's performance was neither fast nor slow. He charged forward with the army and did not stand out. Su Yi was in high spirits as he charged towards Brother Hao. At that moment, Brother Hao was fighting against a general of the top of the 5th godly emperor layer. Su Yi brushed past the 3 swords and fiercely slashed at the general. The general of the Flying Star sect was wielding a battle saber that glittered with starlight. With a loud roar, he swung his saber at Su Yi's 3 divine swords. Clang! Clang! A violent collision broke out, and energy waves spread in all directions. The Flying Star sect's general and Su Yi were forced to retreat. They were evenly matched. The people from the Yunhua Pavilion and the Flying Star sect were all shocked. In the Divine Emperor realm, the gap between each level was huge. It was extremely difficult to fight against someone of a higher level. But Su Yi, with the strength of the 4th godly emperor layer, was able to fight against a general of the top of the 5th godly emperor layer. They had never seen such a genius before. They were all dumbfounded. Brother Hao was the first to react. He was overjoyed. With a roar, he charged toward the general of the Flying Star sect. Whoosh! Whoosh! Su Yi also joined forces with Brother Hao. Suddenly, the Flying Star sect's general was forced to retreat again and again. He only had the strength to defend himself and was unable to fight back. The other cultivator of the 5th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect was fighting against a cultivator of the 5th godly emperor layer from the Yunhua Pavilion. The Flying Star sect was in a bad situation. Boom! At that moment, a tall and sturdy man wearing armor from the Flying Star sect suddenly had the strength of the 4th godly emperor layer. He suddenly had the strength of the 5th godly emperor layer. He was holding a spear, and it moved like a bolt of lightning. He was fighting against a cultivator of the 4th godly emperor layer from the Yunhua Pavilion. He was startled and hastily dodged. But in the godly emperor layer, the difference of 1 godly emperor layer was overwhelming. Slash! The cultivator of the 4th godly emperor layer from the Yunhua Pavilion was instantly killed. Then, he turned into a beam of light and moved towards Su Yi. Su Yi had no choice but to give up on the general of the Flying Star sect and fight against him. How come you have a cultivator of the 5th godly emperor layer? Brother Hao was astonished. The Flying Star sect and the Yunhua Pavilion were fighting on the battlefield. It was difficult for them to send out strong cultivators. How come they suddenly had a cultivator of the 5th godly emperor layer? Could it be that something had happened on the battlefield? They're from the Feiyin continent, of course. They're waiting for the big fish. Smiled the general of the Flying Star sect coldly. Boom! At that moment, a powerful chi rose up in the air from the Flying Star sect. Surprisingly, another cultivator of the 5th godly emperor layer appeared and threw himself at Su Yi. It's over. At that moment, the faces of the Yunhua Pavilion's army turned deathly pale. The enemy had hidden so many strong cultivators in their army. They had 2 more cultivators of the 5th godly emperor layer than they had expected. That kind of fighting strength was enough to turn the situation around. Were the Yunhua Pavilion going to suffer a crushing defeat? You want to die. At that moment, Su Yi coldly shouted. His eyes revealed a gloomy expression. At the same time, 2 black beads appeared in his hand. Within the 2 black beads were strands of lightning flickering. I didn't want to use them, but since you want to die, I'll help you, said Su Yi icily. Then, he threw the 2 pearls at them. Boom boom. The 2 pearls exploded and released lightning. In a flash, the 2 cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer were engulfed by the lightning. Around them, some other strong cultivators were also engulfed by the lightning. They didn't even have time to scream before they turned into ashes. When the lightning disappeared, 2 silhouettes were blown away. Their clothes were tattered and their chi was extremely weak. It was the 2 cultivators of the 5th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect. At that moment, they were severely injured and their chi was extremely weak. When Brother Hao and the others saw that, they were extremely happy. Su Yi had said that he had a weapon that could injure cultivators of the top of the 5th Godly Emperor layer. Chapter 3975. Die! Shouted Su Yi furiously after injuring the 2 cultivators of the 5th Godly Emperor layer. Then, he threw himself at the 2 cultivators of the 5th Godly Emperor layer. Help! Shouted the 2 cultivators of the 5th Godly Emperor layer. No one can save you. Smiled Su Yi coldly. Little boy, you want to die. As soon as Su Yi finished his sentence, a loud roar could be heard coming from the Flying Star sect. Following this, several terrifying auras rose into the sky. There were a total of 3 auras, and they were extremely terrifying. As soon as the auras appeared, a few beams of divine light shot towards Su Yi. That's 6th Godly Emperor layer. Su Yi's face turned pale with fright. He hastily made his 3 swords fly out and collide with the 3 beams of godly light. Although the 3 divine lights were blocked, Su Yi's 3 divine swords were also beaten until they lost their luster. They flew out, and no one knew where they flew to. Swoosh! Swoosh! 3 tall and sturdy silhouettes appeared from the Flying Star sect. They were surrounded by starlight. 6th Godly Emperor layer. Shouted Brother Hao furiously. Not only were there cultivators of the 5th Godly Emperor layer in the enemy's camp, but there were also cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer. It was over. At that moment, they could only put their hopes on Su Yi. They hoped that he could create a miracle and save the situation. Otherwise, the Yunhua Pavilion's army would be in danger. Su Yi pulled a long face when he saw the 3 cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer coming towards him. He clenched his teeth and took out 5 black orbs from his storage ring. He only had 7 of those Tai Chi lightning pearls. He had already used 2 of them, so he only had 5 left. He hoped he could injure the cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer of the Flying Star sect. He waved his hand and threw the 5 pearls at them. 5 explosions sounded as the 5 pearls exploded. The 3 cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer and a few hundred people from the Flying Star sect were trapped inside. Including the 2 cultivators of the 5th Godly Emperor layer who had been seriously injured. Lightning filled the air and the people from the Flying Star sect who were trapped inside were turned into ashes. However, 3 figures managed to rush out of the range of the lightning. It was the 3 cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer. Their godly lights were dim, and some parts of their bodies were burnt. They had been injured by the Tai Chi lightning pearl. However, his injuries were not serious. The Tai Chi lightning pearl could injure cultivators of the 5th Godly Emperor layer, but it couldn't harm cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer. However, apart from the cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer, the cultivators of the Flying Star sect, including the 2 cultivators of the 5th Godly Emperor layer, were all dead. The 3 cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer were furious. Kill that brat. That kid is dead for sure. Kill. The 3 cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer were furious and threw themselves at Su Yi. Su Yi's expression changed drastically, revealing a look of fear as he turned around and ran. He was strong enough to fight against cultivators of the 5th Godly Emperor layer, but against cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer, he would die instantly, let alone 3 cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer. A pair of wings extended from his back, flapping wildly as he fled for his life. However, he wasn't as fast as the cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer. They were getting closer and closer to him. Stop them. I order you to stop them. Su Yi charged into the Yunhua Pavilion's army and roared at the Yunhua Pavilion. But the people of the Yunhua Pavilion didn't dare stop the cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer. Therefore, the people of the Yunhua Pavilion moved to the sides. Fuck! Shouted Su Yi furiously. His hands turned into talons and he grabbed a few people of the Yunhua Pavilion and threw them at the 3 cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer of the Flying Star sect. His goal was to delay them so that he could escape. The people of the Yunhua pavilion who were thrown away gave horrible shrieks as the 3 cultivators of the Flying Star sect smashed them into pieces. Su Yi kept throwing people of the Yunhua pavilion at the 3 cultivators of the Flying Star sect. In the blink of an eye, over 100 people had been thrown away. They all died at the hands of the 3 cultivators of the Flying Star sect. What's going on? Brother Hao and the others pulled long faces. The favorable impression that Su Yi had created for him was now gone. In order to survive, he had sacrificed his own teammates. How shameless. At that moment, they didn't have a good impression of Su Yi anymore. Everywhere Su Yi went, the people of the Yunhua pavilion ran away. Of course, there was one person who didn't run away, Lu Ming. Lu Ming had been following the army the whole time. He hadn't done anything special. He didn't like to show off. Since Su Yi wanted to show off, Lu Ming didn't mind. At that moment, Su Yi threw himself at Lu Ming ferociously. He shouted furiously, "Little boy, go and stop them. Even if you die, you have to stop them." At the same time, he grabbed Lu Ming's shoulder with his talons and threw him back. He wanted to throw Lu Ming towards the 3 cultivators of the Flying Star sect. But he didn't move. Su Yi had the impression he was grabbing a planet. He couldn't throw him away. On the contrary, because he was using too much strength, his arm almost broke. "Piss off, little boy." Su Yi roared again and unleashed all his strength, wanting to throw Lu Ming out. However, he still did not move an inch. Su Yi was dumbstruck. He looked at Lu Ming incredulously. Lu Ming was looking at him coldly. "If you hadn't provoked me, I wouldn't have bothered with you. But since you provoked me, I have no choice but to help you," said Lu Ming coldly. He stretched out his hand and put it on Su Yi's face. His hands shook violently and Su Yi's body was blown away towards the 3 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer of the Flying Star sect. "Ah!" Su Yi screamed in horror. He wanted to stabilize his body, but he realized that he could not do so at all. Lu Ming's outburst of power was too strong. How could a cultivator of the 1st godly emperor layer be that strong? Die. At that moment, the 3 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer of the Flying Star sect arrived and attacked Su Yi. Su Yi gave a horrible shriek and then his body and soul were destroyed. "That little boy is evil. Kill him first." After killing Su Yi, one of the cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer of the Flying Star sect looked at Lu Ming. He used starlight to appear in front of Lu Ming and threw a punch at Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming was also very direct. He also threw a punch at the other party's fist. He had just broken through to the godly emperor layer, so he wanted to see how strong he was. Rumbling sounds spread in all directions. Then, the starlight broke apart and a silhouette was blown away. It was the cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect. His fist was dripping with blood, his bones had been broken by Lu Ming's punch. Chapter 3976. Everybody was dumbstruck when they saw that. Especially the people of the Yunhua pavilion, such as Brother Hao and the others. How? How is that possible? Brother Hao and the others' eyes were wide open. Lu Ming only had the strength of the 1st godly emperor layer, but he had defeated a cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer in one punch, and he had even injured him. Were they hallucinating? Or were they dreaming? At the same time, the 3 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect were also astonished. A cultivator of the 1st godly emperor layer had injured a cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer in one punch. They had never heard of such a thing. "That little boy is evil. Let's join hands and kill him," said the cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer who had been injured. Godly lights surrounded him again. "Die!" shouted the other 2 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer. The 3 of them joined hands and charged towards Lu Ming. "Come!" Lu Ming's eyes were twinkling. He looked excited. He jumped forwards and moved like a mountain towards his opponents. He also used his full strength. His battle formula had increased his fighting strength sixfold. As Lu Ming continued practicing cultivation, the success rate of his battle formula increasing his fighting strength sixfold was increasing. Now, Lu Ming's success rate of increasing his fighting strength sixfold was less than 10%. Boom! The four cultivators collided. In the blink of an eye, they had already exchanged a dozen attacks. Terrifying chi rolled in all directions. Nobody could stand there anymore. Even cultivators of the fifth godly emperor layer would be killed instantly if they got too close to the chi. Everyone was dumbfounded. Especially Brother Hao and the others. Their mouths were wide open, unable to close. Lu Ming had the strength of the first godly emperor layer, and surprisingly, he could fight against 3 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer at the same time. That was 5 godly emperors. Before, when Su Yi had broken through 1 godly emperor layer, they had been astonished. But now, he had broken through 5 godly emperors. They were astonished. It turned out that this was a true monstrous genius. That was what all the members of the Yunhua Pavilion were thinking. They all knew that they had made a mistake in their judgment and looked down on others. Previously, he had thought that Su Yi was a king and Lu Ming was a bronze. It was proven that Lu Ming was the king, while Su Yi was the bronze. After a dozen more attacks, the 3 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect were pushed back. They all pulled long faces and blood splashed out of their mouths. With the 3 of them joining forces, they were actually not Lu Ming's match and fell into a disadvantage. The shock the 3 of them felt was indescribable. Is this my current combat strength? Lu Ming muttered. He was very satisfied with his current combat strength. He didn't need to use other weapons, he could kill cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer on his own. Yes, he was that terrifying now. It could kill enemies that were 5 levels higher. Yin Jiuling, as a Universe Genius List candidate, was able to fight across 4 levels. Lu Ming was much stronger than Yin Jiuling. This was the terror of a forbidden body. In the vast universe, there were countless geniuses. This was the pinnacle. It's time to end this, whispered Lu Ming. At the same time, 4 stone pearls flew out of his wrist. They were gravity pearls. When he was a quasi-emperor, Lu Ming could only control 3 gravity pearls. After breaking through to the godly emperor layer, Lu Ming could control 4 gravity pearls. The gravity created by 4 gravity pearls was 10 times stronger than 3 gravity pearls. Bzzz. A terrifying gravity surrounded the 3 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer. The 3 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect were astonished. Oh no, run. Retreat. The 3 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect retreated without the slightest hesitation. They knew that when Lu Ming hadn't used such a treasure, they couldn't compete with him. Now that Lu Ming had used such a treasure, they definitely couldn't compete with him. They would definitely die. But they were surrounded by the gravity pearls, they were much slower. Lu Ming's silhouette flickered, he caught up with one of them and attacked him furiously. Even if the other 2 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer wanted to help, they wouldn't have time. Ah! The cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer gave a horrible shriek. Half of his body exploded from Lu Ming's attack. He tried to run away, but it was useless. Boom! A terrifying and destructive chi rolled out. The cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer gave a horrible shriek as his body exploded. He had been killed by Lu Ming. After killing him, Lu Ming moved on to another cultivator. With the help of the gravity pearls, Lu Ming had the absolute advantage. The other 2 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer tried their best, but it was useless. One after the other, they were killed by Lu Ming. Run! After the 3 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer were killed, the Yunhua Pavilion's army lost their minds and started running away. Die! Destroy the Flying Star sect. Brother Hao and the others finally came back to their senses. They shouted furiously and chased after Lu Ming. Lu Ming stepped out. In a few flashes, he dashed into the army of the Flying Star sect. Every time he attacked, a cultivator at the third level of the Divine Emperor realm would be killed. Lu Ming attacked cultivators of the third Godly Emperor layer and above. Lu Ming didn't bother attacking cultivators of the third Godly Emperor layer and below. That way, he could turn the tide of the battle. Lu Ming killed cultivators of the third Godly Emperor layer and above. The Flying Star sect's army couldn't fight against the Yunhua Pavilion's army anymore. They kept chasing after Lu Ming. After a few hours, almost 60% of the Flying Star sect's army had been killed. A few managed to escape. The entire planet Kuandong was under the control of the Yunhua Pavilion, including the wormhole. They had won the battle. In the army camp, Brother Hao and the others were extremely respectful in front of Lu Ming. Their heads were almost touching their stomachs. Prince Mu Yun is really a peerless genius. He has the demeanor of a legendary king. Today was an eye-opener for me. If I hadn't seen him, I wouldn't have believed that such a peerless genius like Prince Mu Yun existed. Come, let's toast to Prince Mu Yun. Brother Hao and the rest flattered Lu Ming, trying their best to get into his good books. In their opinion, such an incredible genius like Lu Ming would definitely join the Heavenly Palace. In the future, he would even be a high-ranking member of the Heavenly Palace and become an overlord. Naturally, they had to curry favor with him. Everyone, you're welcome. Lu Ming's face was calm. He raised his glass and replied indifferently. After 3 rounds of drinking, Lu Ming said goodbye. Everyone, the mission on planet Kuandong has been completed. I will now return to the headquarters of the Yunhua Pavilion and wait for the next battle. With that, Lu Ming got up and left. After a while, Lu Ming returned to the headquarters of the Yunhua Pavilion. Chapter 3977. When he returned to the headquarters of the Yunhua Pavilion, Lu Ming found that the other participants had all returned. They had all completed their tasks and were ready to head to the Feiyin continent to fight against the Flying Star sect. However, there were fewer people. There were 12 of them in total. Now, there were only 8 people left, including Lu Ming. When the others saw that Lu Ming had returned alone, they were surprised. They were surprised that Lu Ming, who was only at the first Divine Emperor realm, had returned instead of Su Yi, who was stronger than them. However, no one asked about it. No one knew what they were thinking. The leader of the Yunhua Pavilion decided to head to the Feiyin continent in 3 days to fight against the Flying Star sect and destroy them. The moonlight was like water and the stars were twinkling. It was late at night. In the room, Lu Ming, who was cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes. There was a dazzling glow in his eyes. There were streams of blood in his room. They seeped into the room from the corners of the room and rushed toward Lu Ming as if they were alive. Finally, someone can't wait any longer? Lu Ming whispered. He knew that the 12 of them would kill each other. Out of the 12 people, only the 2 with the highest contributions would pass the test. How could they ensure that they had contributed the most? Of course, the others were all dead. That was the safest way. Therefore, there were only 8 people left. However, it was obviously not enough. There were too many people and someone was going to attack Lu Ming. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, the blood turned into blood-red arrows and shot toward Lu Ming. Humph! Lu Ming snorted coldly. With a wave of his hand, his palm force burst forth, spreading out like water ripples. All of the blood-colored arrows collapsed. Lu Ming's figure flashed and he appeared outside the room. There was a courtyard outside the room. At the moment, a red-haired young man was standing in the courtyard. Shuechuan. Lu Ming said coldly. This person was from the inferior blood tribe, a large tribe in the primitive universe. The inferior blood race was said to have a close relationship with the blood race. It was said that they were made up of blood race members with impure blood. Shuechuan was one of the strongest cultivators of the inferior blood clan. He had the strength of the top of the 4th godly emperor layer, but it was said that he had fought against cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer for 100 times and hadn't died. In the divine emperor realm, being able to surpass 2 levels was considered a top genius even among the countless geniuses in the primitive universe. I didn't expect you to be able to take one of my attacks and not die. It seems like I've underestimated you. Shuechuan sneered. His face was extremely cold. Looks like you still don't know about Kuandong planet. Lu Ming said. What about Kuandong planet? Shuechuan was slightly stunned. Lu Ming understood. Brother Hao would definitely report what had happened on Kundong planet to the Yunhua Pavilion Master. However, there was no need for the Yunhua Pavilion Master to inform Lu Ming and the others. Therefore, the other candidates didn't know about Lu Ming's incredible strength on Kuandong planet. Nothing. I'm just curious. I'm only a cultivator of the 1st godly emperor layer. I shouldn't be a threat to you. Why do you want to kill me first? Lu Ming asked. On the surface, with Lu Ming's cultivation level, it was impossible for him to pass the exam. However, Shuechuan was the first one to kill him. He couldn't help but feel a little strange. Since you're going to die, I'll let you know why. First, I instinctively feel that your blood tastes good. If I drink your blood, it may make me stronger. Second, as long as you're alive, you're an unknown factor. I'll kill you one by one. You're the first one. Shuechuan sneered. His face was ferocious. You're really unlucky. You should have chosen someone else. That way, you could have lived a little longer. Lu Ming shook his head and sighed. Ridiculous. Don't talk nonsense. Die. Shouted Shuechuan coldly. His blood qi filled the air. His whole body was enveloped by a bloody light. Then, he turned into a bloody sword light and slashed towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming waved his hand and 4 gravity pearls flew out. He didn't want to waste time talking nonsense with his opponent. He directly used the gravity pearls. The strength of the 4 gravity pearls completely covered the courtyard. The powerful gravity pressed down on Shuechuan. Shuechuan's body shook violently. The bloody light on his body almost collapsed. Whoosh! Lu Ming attacked. He activated the battle formula and increased his fighting strength by 5 times. He used the Great Holy Wind technique and the Great Breaking technique. His hand was like a knife. Poof! Blood splattered everywhere. Shuechuan's body was torn apart. He couldn't be more dead. One move. Just one move and Shuechuan was killed by Lu Ming. Shuechuan's fighting strength was only equivalent to the strength of the 6th godly emperor layer. After Lu Ming used the gravity pearls, he was caught off guard and was instantly killed by Lu Ming. Lu Ming grabbed Shuechuan's interspatial ring and took it. Then, he condensed a flame and burned Shuechuan's body to ashes. Hee, are you all pretending to be stupid? Lu Ming glanced around and smiled indifferently. The other people who were participating in the exam lived nearby. Lu Ming didn't believe that these people hadn't noticed what had just happened. However, these people didn't make the slightest movement. They were obviously waiting to reap the benefits. Anyway, no matter if Lu Ming or Shuechuan died, it would be beneficial for them. However, at that moment, these people were astonished. Shuechuan was killed. I wouldn't have thought that Mu Yun's strength would be so terrifying. With the strength of the 1st godly emperor layer, he could kill Shuechuan, who had the strength of the 6th godly emperor layer. Even though he used a treasure, it's still terrifying. What terrifying strength! It seems that everyone has underestimated this person. With my strength, how could I have finished in the top 2? Thoughts rose in the hearts of these people. Some of them had serious expressions, some shook their heads and sighed, and some revealed murderous intent. Lu Ming smiled coldly. If these people didn't provoke him, he would be fine. If they provoked him, they would be courting death. Lu Ming's silhouette flickered and he went back to his room. Then, he took out a demonic secret skill and started practicing it. He was now practicing ordinary secret skills very quickly. After a short period of time, he could successfully comprehend an ordinary secret skill and turn it into a talisman and integrate it into his cells. All kinds of demonic secret skills turned into talismans and integrated into Lu Ming's cells. Lu Ming gradually mastered more and more secret skills. That night, everything was peaceful. The next day, it was still peaceful. Late at night, Lu Ming sensed that there was someone in the courtyard outside his door. "Who is it?" Lu Ming asked coldly. A ray of cold light flashed in his eyes. "Brother Mu Yun, it's me, Ming Yu Sheng." A clear and bright voice sounded. "It's him." Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Ming Yu Sheng was a top genius of the Moonlight clan. Chapter 3978. The Moonlight clan was ranked 24th in the list of the 10,000 clans of ancient desolation. They were one of the strongest clans. They were even stronger than the Elf clan. The members of the Moonlight clan were the incarnations of Moonlight. Ming Yu Sheng was one of the strongest cultivators of the Moonlight clan. He had the strength of the 5th godly emperor layer, but he could defeat opponents who were 2 cultivation layers higher than him. He was terrifyingly strong. Among the 12 people, he was one of the most likely to pass the exam. The other one was the old man who had the strength of the 7th godly emperor layer. At least, they were the 2 most likely to pass the exam. Of course, many people thought that Mu Yun was also one of the most likely candidates to pass the exam. With a thought, a blast of air burst out, and the door opened automatically. A young man in white clothes was standing outside the door. "You're here to kill me too?" asked Lu Ming icily. "Brother Mu, you misunderstood me. I'm here to talk about cooperation," said Ming Yu Sheng. "Cooperation?" Lu Ming's eyes twinkled. "Indeed. Can I come in?" asked Ming Yu Sheng, smiling elegantly. He looked harmless to humans and animals. "Of course," said Lu Ming. He wasn't afraid of Ming Yu Sheng. If Ming Yu Sheng wanted to die, he didn't mind sending him on his way. Ming Yu Sheng was strong. He could defeat cultivators of the 7th godly emperor layer. Lu Ming couldn't compete with him on his own, but Lu Ming had many deadly weapons. Ming Yu Sheng wasn't very talented. He probably couldn't control any powerful weapons. Ming Yu Sheng entered the room and closed the door. "What do you want to talk about?" asked Lu Ming. "This time, there are 12 of us." "No, it should be 7 now. Among the 7 of us, only 2 can complete the assessment. The ones who are most likely to complete the assessment are Fu Zun, me, and you, Brother Mu. As long as one of us falls, the remaining 2 will almost certainly be able to pass the assessment," said Ming Yu Sheng. "You want to cooperate with me to kill Fu Zun?" asked Lu Ming. Fu Zun was the old man who had the strength of the 7th godly emperor layer. It's easy to deal with smart people. Not bad. Fu Zun is old, but he's very strong. Ordinary cultivators of the 7th godly emperor layer can't compete with him. I'm not sure I can defeat him, but with Brother Mu, I'm sure I can defeat him," said Ming Yu Sheng. Lu Ming was not surprised by Fu Zun's ability. Those who could participate in the Heavenly Soldier assessment were usually powerful people. Even if they couldn't fight above their level, they were still the best among their peers, regardless of age. Sometimes, you couldn't underestimate your age. Although his potential was limited due to his age, his combat strength was hard to say. Some people had spent countless years to comprehend the quintessence God Force factor and quintessence God Force factor. Perhaps the quintessence God Force factor had been awakened many times, and many of the shackles of the quintessence secret technique had been severed. From the looks of it, the more times one awakened their origin divine power, the easier it would be for them to achieve breakthroughs in their cultivation. However, this wasn't absolute. Some people's origin divine power might be awakened many times, but their cultivation wouldn't be able to achieve breakthroughs even after a long time. They could only let their lifespan continue to elapse and become white-haired elders. The fighting strength of these people was often terrifying. Young geniuses were strong, but the fighting strength of some older geniuses was not to be underestimated. Where do you want to do it? It won't look good here. Lu Ming said. I won't be as stupid as Xue Chuan. In 2 days, we'll go to the Flying Cloud continent to fight against the Flying Star sect. We'll have plenty of chances to do it on the battlefield. No one will suspect that we did it, said Ming Yuesheng. Okay, I promise you. Lu Ming nodded with a smile. This is great. The 2 quotas for the assessment are mine and Brother Mu's. Ming Yuesheng smiled and left his contact information with Lu Ming. He then floated away without anyone noticing. Boy, do you really believe him? Maybe he'll turn around and find Fu Zun to deal with you. Reminded Gumo, I just agreed to deal with him. Lu Ming smiled. Boy, I know you're cunning, said Gumo with a smile. Bone Devil's guess was right. Ming Yuesheng quietly returned to his room, but not long after, he quietly appeared in another room. It was Fu Zun's room. What kind of cooperation do you want to talk to me about? Fu Zun looked at Ming Yuesheng. His turbid eyes were shining with a terrifying light. You should have seen how Mu Yun killed Xue Chuan, right? Said Ming Yuesheng. Yes, Mu Yun is really terrifying. He's only at the first layer of the Divine Emperor realm. He's a peerless hero, said Fu Zun. There was a flash of jealousy in Ming Yuesheng's eyes, but it disappeared in a flash. Indeed, Mu Yun is a peerless hero. I'm far from him. I wonder if you're interested in joining forces with me to kill such a peerless hero? Said Ming Yuesheng coldly. Join forces with you to kill Mu Yun? Fu Zun's eyes flashed. That's right. Among the remaining people, only you, Mu Yun, and I have the chance to complete the test. As long as we work together to kill him, the 2 test missions will be ours. Besides, any peerless genius would surely have some fortunate encounters, peerless treasures, and peerless martial arts. If you can kill him and claim his treasures, you might be able to have a breakthrough in your cultivation, said Ming Yuesheng. The last sentence caused Fu Zun's eyes to shine with a bright and greedy light. Being able to help him break through his cultivation was more attractive than anything else. He had been stuck at the 7th layer of the Godly Emperor realm for a long time. He had tried all kinds of methods, but he couldn't break through to the 8th layer of the Godly Emperor realm. He had joined the Heavenly Palace to become a celestial soldier because he wanted to find a way to break through. If he killed Lu Ming and obtained Lu Ming's treasures, he might be able to break through. He was tempted. He couldn't refuse such a temptation. All right, let's join forces. But we need to think about when to attack, said Fu Zun. Wait until we reach the Feiyin continent. We'll have plenty of opportunities to attack on the battlefield, said Ming Yuesheng. All right. Fu Zun nodded and reached an agreement with Ming Yuesheng. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. After 3 days, Lu Ming and the others followed the pavilion master of the Yunhua pavilion to the Feiyin continent. The Feiyin continent was a continent floating in the air. It was huge and had rich divine qi. It was the best place to cultivate in the Feiyin Star area. In the past, it was jointly managed by the Flying Star sect and the Yunhua pavilion. It was also the center of the war. The 2 forces had gathered the most experts on the Feiyin continent. Chapter 3979. However, during this period of time, the Yunhua pavilion was at a disadvantage on the Feiyin continent. Many experts had died, which was why the Flying Star sect was able to transfer some people away, such as the sudden increase of experts in the Kuandong planet. Lu Ming and the others arrived at the headquarters of the Yunhua pavilion on the Feiyin continent. This place was like a military camp. At a glance, it was boundless. The Yunhua Pavilion held a banquet to welcome Lu Ming and the others. At the banquet, the pavilion master and the others' attitude towards Lu Ming was completely different from before. They were much more respectful. Obviously, they already knew what had happened on the Kuan Dong planet. Dong dong dong, suddenly, the sound of war drums resounded. Pavilion master, the Flying Star sect is attacking. Someone quickly came to report. Everyone, it seems like we can't enjoy this banquet. The pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion said apologetically. Ha ha ha, it doesn't matter. Let's go and have a good fight with the Flying Star sect. It won't be too late to eat and drink after we destroy the Flying Star sect. Ming Yuesheng laughed heartily. Alright, gather the army and have a good fight with the Flying Star sect. The pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion ordered. Soon after, the war drums sounded and countless figures flew out from the Yunhua Pavilion's military camp. Lu Ming and the other 6 were naturally among them. They naturally couldn't miss such an opportunity. If they didn't dare to participate in every battle, how could they earn merits? How could they complete the assessment? Kill! In front, countless troops of the Flying Star sect roared and rushed over. Kill! Lu Ming and the others also roared. The two armies and countless experts clashed in the air. In an instant, countless people died and their bodies fell to the ground. Lu Ming condensed a long spear with his forbidden energy and charged into the crowd of the Flying Star sect. As the long spear stabbed out, the spear radiance was everywhere and the people of the Flying Star sect were constantly killed. Every time a person of the Flying Star sect was killed, a wisp of remnant soul would fly to Lu Ming and be absorbed by the jade talisman sent by the Heavenly Palace. Their merits were calculated according to the remnant soul absorbed by the jade talisman. Based on the remnant soul, one could deduce the cultivation level of the victim. Lu Ming went on a killing spree as if there was no one around. Soon, over 100 experts from the Flying Star sect had been killed by him. Die, brat! A cultivator of the 6th Godly Emperor layer stared at Lu Ming and attacked Lu Ming. Good timing! Shouted Lu Ming furiously. He turned into a beam of light and collided with the cultivator of the 6th Godly Emperor layer from the Flying Star sect. With a loud boom, it was as if the sun had exploded. Rings of energy waves swept out in all directions. Then, the cultivator of the 6th Godly Emperor layer from the Flying Star sect was pushed back and coughed up blood. His eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. He couldn't believe that a cultivator of the 1st Godly Emperor layer could injure him in one attack. Wang! In the next moment, the 4 gravity pearls emitted a terrifying gravitational force that enveloped the man's body. Then, Lu Ming rushed over and killed the man. The people of the Flying Star sect were shocked. They distanced themselves from Lu Ming, their eyes filled with fear. Die! Lu Ming moved in another direction. The army was made up of high-level godly kings. Most of them were godly emperors, but there were also many godly emperors. The battlefield was huge. It was a battlefield for millions and millions of li. Some people were fighting in the sky, some were fighting in the mountains, some were fighting underground. Lu Ming didn't see any people from the Flying Star sect around him. Swoosh! Lu Ming dashed toward a mountain ridge. Over here, some people from the Flying Star sect and the Yunhua Pavilion were engaged in a fierce battle. Lu Ming waved his hands and a gust of wind swept across. 6 to 7 experts from the Flying Star sect were killed by Lu Ming. Leaving behind a few people from the Yunhua Pavilion who were in a daze, Lu Ming flashed past them and dashed toward another place. Just like that, Lu Ming killed hundreds of people from the Flying Star sect in half an hour, including a few cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer. However, he didn't encounter any cultivators above the 7th Godly Emperor layer. Just as Lu Ming passed by a canyon, he suddenly felt a sharp and fierce murderous intent sweeping toward him. Lu Ming looked at it coldly and threw a punch. Boom! Lu Ming's fist collided with a green venomous snake and there was a violent explosion. The green venomous snake was defeated by Lu Ming. It turned out that it was condensed from energy. However, Lu Ming's body also retreated rapidly. Numerous wounds appeared on his arms. How strong! That's the strength of a cultivator of the 7th Holy Emperor layer. Lu Ming's eyes were cold as he stared in one direction. A silhouette appeared in Lu Ming's field of vision. It was an old man, Fu Zun. It seems like you can't control yourself anymore, said Lu Ming. Mu Yun, give me your treasures and the techniques you practice. I'll give you a quick death, said Fu Zun. You alone? Asked Lu Ming probingly. I alone am enough to kill you, said Fu Zun coldly. He and Ming Yusheng had agreed to join hands to deal with Lu Ming. However, he couldn't control his greed and decided to attack alone. After joining hands with Ming Yusheng to kill Lu Ming's treasures would be split equally with Ming Yusheng. If he attacked alone, wouldn't all Lu Ming's treasures be his? Even though Lu Ming was strong, Fu Zun was confident that he could kill Lu Ming. Therefore, he had been watching Lu Ming since the beginning of the battle with the Flying Stars sect. He had waited until there was no one around to attack. Is that so? Lu Ming smiled indifferently. Suddenly, Lu Ming moved. He turned into a gust of wind and charged Fu Zun. As he charged out, the 4 gravity orbs flew out. The powerful gravity enveloped a large area around him. Divine Snake Reincarnation Seal. Fu Zun hollered. His divine power surged and condensed into more than 10 poisonous snakes, charging toward Lu Ming. Those poisonous snakes hissed and broke through the gravity. They either bit or coiled around Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming used his battle formula to increase his battle prowess by 6 times. He used 2 ancient secret skills at the same time to attack the snakes. However, Lu Ming was still no match for them. After a dozen attacks, Lu Ming was pushed back. He had more wounds on his body. With the gravity pearls, Lu Ming could easily kill cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer. However, Fu Zun was strong even among cultivators of the 7th godly emperor layer. Lu Ming was no match for him. Die! 10,000 snakes murder! Fu Zun roared. More and more green venomous snakes condensed from his body and pounced on Lu Ming. Even the gravity of the gravity pearl could not stop them. Qiu. Lu Ming's mind stirred. Qiu transformed into armor, covering his entire body. A silver spear appeared in his hands. The spear turned into a dozen spear lights and shot out explosively. Chapter 3980. Lu Ming borrowed Qiu's power and charged towards Fu Zun. However, after a dozen moves, Lu Ming still coughed up blood and retreated. Even with Qiu's help, they were still no match for Fu Zun. Die! Fu Zun roared as he transformed into a giant green snake. He traversed the void and coiled around Lu Ming. A green poisonous gas emanated from his body and enveloped Lu Ming. This type of poisonous gas was extremely toxic and had a terrifying corrosive property. Sizzling sounds came from Lu Ming's body. Even Qiu's armor was corroded with holes. The poisonous gas seeped into Lu Ming's body and corroded Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming screamed in pain and struggled with all his might. Die! Fu Zun roared as he coiled around Lu Ming with all his might. He wanted to kill Lu Ming completely. Brat, your ability to put on an act is not bad. Bone Demon secretly sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming. Huh, of course I have to act like it. Lu Ming replied, but he continued to scream in pain. I'll fight you to the death. Lu Ming struggled with all his might and took out the Gale Pearl. With a boom, a powerful force exploded from the Gale Pearl and destroyed everything in its path. However, under Lu Ming's special control, it was as if the Gale Bead had exploded, giving off the feeling that it was a one-time use treasure. The Gale Pearl's explosion created a destructive force that swept out in all directions. Fu Zun, who had transformed into a green snake, screamed in horror as his body was continuously destroyed by the destructive force. "Ah, kid, I'll take you down with me," Fu Zun roared. He felt a fatal danger. The power of the Gale Pearl's explosion was too terrifying. He couldn't escape at all. Only death awaited him. Faced with such a situation, Fu Zun went crazy. His body exploded with a boom. He actually self-destructed. The two destructive forces collided continuously and enveloped Lu Ming. After a while, all the forces dissipated. Fu Zun's body had completely disappeared and turned into ashes. Only Lu Ming was left. He was lying on the ground and vomiting blood. His aura was weak and he looked like he was on the verge of death. Another while later, a figure floated over from a hidden place like a ghost. He appeared not far away from Lu Ming and stared coldly at Lu Ming. He, Brother Mu, are you all right?" the figure asked. "Brother Mingyue." Lu Ming spoke with difficulty. This figure was Ming Yusheng. "Brother Mu, you look like you're seriously injured?" Ming Yusheng asked tentatively. "Fortunately, it's all because of that old fellow Fu Zun. I didn't expect that he would attack me first before I attacked him. Fortunately, I have a trump card. Otherwise, I would most likely be in danger." "Brother Mingyue, please lend me a hand," Lu Ming said. "Lend you a hand? Mu Yun, you're really naive. Now, hand over all your treasures and cultivation techniques and I'll give you a quick death," Ming Yuesheng said. Lu Ming's expression did not change. "Ming Yuesheng, have you revealed your true face? You were watching from the side just now, right?" "That's right. That guy Fu Zun thought that he was tailing you secretly, but he didn't know that I was tailing him the whole time. I knew that he wouldn't be able to control himself and would attack you first. When both of you are injured, I can sit back and reap the benefits," Ming Yuesheng said. "So, you were lying when you said you wanted to cooperate with me?" Lu Ming said. "Of course, I cooperated with you only to lower your guard and let you fight to the death with Fu Zun. Everything was within my expectations. Now, I'll say it again. Hand over the treasures and divine arts on your body and I can give you a quick death," Ming Yuesheng said. He was afraid that if he killed Lu Ming, he would only be able to obtain Lu Ming's treasures and not Lu Ming's mystical skills. After all, many people would not carry the mystical skills with them. "You think too much." Lu Ming smiled faintly. Then, he stood up directly. The injuries on his body were healing at an astonishing speed. Moreover, his aura was also rising rapidly. Your injuries? How could it be?" Ming Yuesheng roared in shock. "What are these injuries to me?" Lu Ming smiled. Everything he did before was an act. His purpose was to lure Ming Yuesheng out and make him reveal his true face. Ming Yuesheng thought that he hid it well, but in fact, he had been discovered by Lu Ming long ago. Just now, he deliberately exploded the Gale Pearl and deliberately injured Fu Zun. His purpose was to lower Ming Yuesheng's guard. Ming Yuesheng thought that everything was going according to his plan, but in fact, everything was going according to Lu Ming's plan. "So what if your injuries are healed? You already used your trump card in the battle against Fu Zun. Without it, I can easily kill you," shouted Ming Yuesheng furiously. His body was surrounded by a hazy light. At the same time, moonlight fell from the sky and fell on Ming Yuesheng, making his aura rise rapidly. Bright moon above the sea. A strange phenomenon appeared above Ming Yuesheng's head. A bright moon appeared in the vast sea. The moonlight was boundless and illuminated the sky. The moonlight seemed gentle, but it was terrifyingly destructive. When the moonlight shone on it, the space shattered like a piece of paper. It was Ming Yuesheng's original secret technique. Bang bang bang. When the moonlight shone on Lu Ming's body shook violently and kept exploding. Even Qiu's armor could not resist it. Ming Yuesheng was extremely strong. Even though he only had the strength of the fifth godly emperor layer, he wasn't any weaker than Fu Zun. Since you want to die, I'll help you. Die! Shouted Ming Yuesheng furiously. He used all his strength to control his original secret technique. Bright and pure moonlight turned into pillars of light which moved towards Lu Ming. I don't want to play with you anymore. I'll send you on your way, said Lu Ming indifferently. Then, a round pearl appeared in his hand. It was the Zephyr Pearl. When Ming Yuesheng saw the Zephyr Pearl, he frowned in disbelief. He shouted furiously, "How come you have another one? You just exploded. Do you have a second one?" "I only have one Zephyr Pearl," said Lu Ming. Then, a strong wind emerged from the Zephyr Pearl. Wherever the strong gale passed, the moonlight that Ming Yuesheng had created was extinguished. The strong gale did not stop and swept towards Ming Yuesheng. Ming Yuesheng was startled and tried to retreat, but it was too late. The strong wind was too fast and caught up with Ming Yuesheng. Ming Yuesheng gave a horrible shriek. He used all his skills to resist, but it was useless. His body was covered in wounds. Why? Why? Shouted Ming Yuesheng furiously. He couldn't believe that he was in such a situation. Chapter 3981. Ming Yuesheng roared, truly unwilling to accept this. I'll let you know when you die. You think you're smart, but I've already guessed all your plans. After you found me, you went to find Fu Zun and said you wanted to join hands with him to fight against me, right? Also, you were hiding in the dark a moment ago. I noticed you, said Lu Ming. How is that possible? This was the last thought that flashed across Ming Yuesheng's mind. He thought he was smart, he thought everything was going according to his plan. He hadn't thought Lu Ming would guess everything. In that case, it was obvious that Lu Ming had deliberately pretended to be injured in the fight with Fu Zun earlier. In fact, Lu Ming could easily kill Fu Zun. Unfortunately, it was too late to figure that out. Ming Yuesheng turned into ashes in the wind. After putting away Ming Yuesheng's storage ring, Lu Ming took out a large number of divine weapons and metal materials from it. Ball, here, eat as much as you want, said Lu Ming. Qiuqiu immediately flew out and turned into a huge metal snake. Back in the primordial divine spirit world, Qiuqiu had once devoured a metal snake and gained the ability of that metal snake. That was, it could devour large amounts of divine weapons and metal-type materials in one go. After turning into a gigantic metal snake, it opened its mouth and swallowed a large number of weapons and metals. Then, it turned back into a ball and looked satisfied. Recently, Ball had swallowed a large number of weapons and metals. Its cultivation level had already reached the peak of the fourth godly emperor layer. It felt like it would soon break through to the fifth godly emperor layer. Lu Ming naturally didn't mind. As long as he got weapons and metals, he would feed them to Ball. Qiuqiu burped a few times and circled around Lu Ming happily. Then, it transformed back into a bracelet and put it on Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming then left this place and continued to hunt the people from the Flying Star sect. In the next few hours, Lu Ming killed over 100 experts from the Flying Star sect. At this time, the war drums on both sides sounded at the same time, urging them to retreat. Lu Ming flew back to the barracks of the Yunhua Pavilion. When they returned to the barracks, there were originally 7 of them, but now there were only 5 left. The pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion saw that Fu Zun and Ming Yuesheng had not returned. His eyes flickered a few times, but he did not say anything and let Lu Ming and the others go back to rest. As for the Yunhua Pavilion master, he gathered the upper echelons of the Yunhua Pavilion for a discussion. I plan to launch an all-out attack on the Flying Star sect and fight them to the death, the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion said. Hearing this, the expressions of the upper echelons of the Yunhua Pavilion changed drastically. Pavilion master, you can't do that. The combat power of our Yunhua Pavilion is no match for the Flying Star sect. If we fight recklessly, it will be disadvantageous to us. Indeed. Initially, we hoped that the Heavenly Palace would send some people to help us, but now, there are only 5 of them left. Besides, the strongest cultivators are all dead. What's left is a bunch of trash. They won't be able to help us at all. Indeed. I don't know what the Heavenly Palace is doing. They sent some useless people to help us. How could we destroy the Flying Star sect like that? The upper echelons of the Yunhua Pavilion were complaining. Do you really think that the strong cultivators sent by the Heavenly Palace are all dead? Asked the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion. He looked like an old schemer. Isn't it true? Fu Zun, who had the highest cultivation level, is dead. And Ming Yuesheng, even though his cultivation level is not high, I've seen him fight. He's terrifyingly strong. I'm afraid he's as strong as Fu Zun, but he's also dead. There are a few other strong cultivators, but they're all dead. The ones left are all cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer or below. They won't be able to help us at all. Said someone. You're wrong. Said the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion. The upper echelons of the Yunhua Pavilion were confused. They were wrong? What were they wrong about? You probably know that the 12 people sent by the Heavenly Palace are all going to participate in the Celestial Soldier exam. Their task is to help the Yunhua Pavilion destroy the Flying Star sect. At the same time, among the 12 people, only the 2 who have contributed the most will be able to pass the exam. The others will be eliminated. What will happen if that happens? Asked the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion. They'll kill each other. Said one of the old men. The others also understood. Indeed, if that happened, they would definitely kill each other because there were only 2 people who could pass the exam. If they could get rid of the others, they would have a higher chance of passing the exam. That's right. When they came, there were 12 of them, but now there are only 5 left. Did they all die on the battlefield? How is that possible? They probably killed each other. There's only one result if they kill each other: the weak ones will be eliminated and the strong ones will stay. Said the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion. Pavilion master, you're saying that there are true experts among the remaining people. However, their cultivation, said a middle-aged man. The others couldn't believe it either. Because the remaining people's cultivation levels were too low. You have to look further. Those people are going to participate in the Heavenly Palace's Celestial Soldier exam. You can't look at them like normal people. Every time, there are peerless geniuses who participate in the Celestial Soldier exam. Maybe there's someone like that among this group of people. And the strongest, without a doubt, is among the remaining people. Said the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion. So, who do you think is the strongest one? Asked someone. Mu Yun is the most likely one. Even though he only has the strength of the 1st godly emperor layer, his fighting abilities are comparable to those of the 6th godly emperor layer. He's a peerless cultivator, and with his trump cards, his fighting abilities are unfathomable. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that there's a peerless genius among the remaining people. You have to remember that the Heavenly Palace always does things for a reason. Since the Heavenly Palace sent them here, they must think that there's someone among them who can help us destroy the Flying Star sect. Therefore, I plan to attack the Flying Star sect. At that time, no matter who's hiding, they'll use their full strength. We can't continue to waste time with the Flying Star sect. The more we waste time, the greater the losses we'll suffer. Even if we destroy the Flying Star sect, we'll suffer a great loss. We have to end this battle as soon as possible. The Yunhua Pavilion's pavilion master shared his guess and decision. You're right, pavilion master. Said the others after hearing the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion. Alright, gather all the strong cultivators of the Yunhua Pavilion. Tomorrow morning, we'll fight against the Flying Star sect. Said the pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion. That night, Lu Ming received the news that they would fight against the Flying Star sect the next morning. The pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion is really courageous. Alright, the earlier the battle, the earlier the end of the exam. Lu Ming's eyes were shining. He looked relaxed. As for the other 4 people, when they heard the news, they looked grave. They knew how strong they were. Chapter 3982. One night passed in the blink of an eye. The next morning, the pavilion leader of the Yunhua Pavilion led the strongest cultivators of the Yunhua Pavilion to the Flying Star sect. There were only a few thousand of them. Of course, they were all elites of the Yunhua Pavilion and they were all above the Divine Emperor realm. In the final battle, quality mattered more than quantity. As long as they could kill all the Divine Emperors of the Flying Star sect, the Flying Star sect would be destroyed. Thousands of Divine Emperors flew over, creating terrifying shockwaves that shook the entire starry sky. Lu Ming sighed. There was a huge gap in strength between a top-notch universe-level force and a low-level universe-level force. A low-level force could be considered a universe-level force if it had a Divine Emperor. However, the Yunhua Pavilion had thousands of Divine Emperors. The gap was huge. Of course, there were even stronger universe-level forces. The Yunhua Pavilion only had one Divine Emperor layer of the 9th Divine Emperor layer. Some of the stronger universe-level forces had several Divine Emperors. Some even had dozens or hundreds of Divine Emperors. Of course, above the universe-level forces, there was a powerful clan. These powerful clans all had Emperor Gods. Above the Divine Emperors were Emperor Gods. The clans on the list of primitive 10,000 tribes were even more terrifying as they had many Emperor Gods. The higher the ranking, the more terrifying their strength was. Some of the top clans even had people who could compete with the Lord of Heaven of the Heavenly Palace. Many thoughts flashed through Lu Ming's mind. They had crossed thousands of mountains and rivers and were about to reach the territory of the Flying Star sect. Boom, boom, boom. In front of them, the void trembled. Shockwaves swept over like waves, and figures appeared one after another between heaven and earth. They were the experts of the Flying Star sect. The Flying Star sect knew that Lu Ming and the others were coming. The experts of the Flying Star sect who were above the Divine Emperor realm had already gathered and formed a formation, waiting for the people of the Yunhua Pavilion. The number of Divine Emperors of the Flying Star sect was no less than that of the Yunhua Pavilion. There were thousands of them too. Boom! The chi of the two sides collided in the sky and turned the sky into a chaotic mess. The people of the Yunhua Pavilion stopped. Yunsu, what's wrong? Did you bring all the experts of the Yunhua Pavilion here to fight with my Flying Star sect? An old man with snow-white hair walked out from the Flying Star sect. He was wearing a long robe with stars on it. His aura was natural and unfathomable. He was the patriarch of the Flying Star sect. He was as famous as Yunsu, the leader of the Yu Cloud Pavilion. He had the strength of the 9th Godly Emperor layer. What's the point of continuing to fight? Let's settle this today. The pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion said. Hee, since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. The sect leader of the Flying Star sect said coldly. Starlight burst out from his body. Although it was daytime, countless stars appeared in the sky. Beams of starlight fell from the sky. Kill! The pavilion master of the Yunhua Pavilion, Yunsu, shouted. The void exploded as he flew out towards the sect leader of the Flying Star sect. The members of the Flying Star sect also flew out to attack Yunsu. The two of them flew up into the sky and fought in the starry sky. Boom! It seemed like stars were exploding in the starry sky. The entire universe was shaking. A battle between cultivators of the 9th Godly Emperor layer was terrifying. The starry sky was going to explode. Die! Die! The leaders of the two groups started fighting. The others shouted furiously and attacked their opponents. The godly emperors of the Yu Cloud Pavilion and the Flying Star sect were attacking each other. It was a great battle between godly emperors. As Lu Ming flew out, a few people attacked Lu Ming. Little boy, die. said a big man with a curly beard. He looked ferocious and had the strength of the second godly emperor layer. He threw a few punches at Lu Ming. He wanted to kill Lu Ming. But a cultivator of the second godly emperor layer was too weak. Lu Ming didn't even need to attack. He just moved forwards and a strong wind surrounded him. The curly-bearded man was crushed to pieces. Boom! 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 Lu Ming punched continuously. Streams of fist force were like meteors, blasting toward the god emperor of the Flying Star sect. Each of his punches could kill a godly emperor. The Flying Star sect's strong cultivators were astonished. The other strong cultivators also looked at Lu Ming. For example, a few cultivators of the sixth godly emperor layer looked at Lu Ming and threw themselves at him. Good! Lu Ming waved his hand and 4 gravity pearls flew out. A powerful gravitational force surrounded the cultivators of the sixth godly emperor layer. Then, Lu Ming used his battle incantation to increase his fighting strength by 6 times. He dashed forward and killed a cultivator of the sixth godly emperor layer. How is this possible? The other cultivators of the sixth godly emperor layer widened their eyes in shock. Apparently, they were stunned by Lu Ming, a cultivator of the first godly emperor layer. Then, they retreated at full speed. They wanted to escape, but with the gravitational force, how could they escape? Lu Ming cast the Great Divine Wind skill. His figure was like a ghost. In a few flashes, he caught up with the few of them. He threw out continuous punches. Bam! 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 3 cultivators of the sixth godly emperor layer exploded. Their souls and bodies were destroyed. In this vast territory, the other people of the 2 great forces were also fighting very fiercely. Cultivators of the 8th godly emperor layer were fighting against cultivators of the 7th godly emperor layer. However, the Flying Star sect had more cultivators of the 7th and 8th godly emperor layer. They had more cultivators. For example, the Yunhua Pavilion had 12 cultivators of the 8th godly emperor layer, while the Flying Star sect had 14. The Flying Star sect had more cultivators of the 7th godly emperor layer. Therefore, the Yunhua Pavilion was at a disadvantage. They could only join hands and defend themselves. At the same time, they were praying and hoping that Lu Ming and the others would be able to turn the situation around. At that moment, some cultivators of the 7th and 8th godly emperor layer were staring at Lu Ming. 2 people, go and kill that little boy! Shouted someone furiously. I'll go and kill him! Shouted a cultivator of the 7th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect. He turned into a starlight sword and moved towards Lu Ming. If you didn't come to me, I would have gone to you, said Lu Ming coldly. He rose up in the air and threw himself at his opponent. He had originally planned to get involved in the battle between the cultivators of the 7th and 8th godly emperor layer. That way, he would be able to gain more merits. In the process of dashing out, Lu Ming took out the Gale Pearl and drew out the power in it. Boom! A violent gale burst out and rushed towards the other party with an earth-shattering momentum. The other party was immediately enveloped by the raging wind. The raging wind instantly tore apart the other party's defense. Ah! The other party roared in shock and fear. At this moment, he was filled with regret. He didn't expect Lu Ming to have such a powerful killing weapon. He shouldn't have attacked Lu Ming. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. He was reduced to ashes in the strong wind. The cultivators of the 7th and 8th godly emperor layers were astonished. Chapter 3983. When Lu Ming killed a cultivator of the 7th godly emperor layer in one fell swoop, the other cultivators of the 7th and 8th godly emperor layers were astonished. After that, the cultivators of the 2 groups had different feelings. The people of the Flying Star sect were astonished, while the people of the Yunhua Pavilion were delighted. He had killed a cultivator of the 7th godly emperor layer in one hit, which meant that he was as strong as a cultivator of the 8th godly emperor layer. He could change the outcome of a battle. Die! Shouted Lu Ming icily. He was surrounded by a strong wind as he moved towards the cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. He was very far away, and a few wind blades moved towards the cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer of the Flying Star sect. Each wind blade was terrifyingly powerful. The cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer of the Flying Star sect's expression changed drastically. They ignored the cultivators of the Yunhua Pavilion and focused on the wind blades. Someone raised his hand and a gigantic mountain appeared. The mountain was gray and golden, blocking the way. Someone took out a shield, which became incomparably huge, blocking in front of him. Some people released a dozen defensive godly lights in front of them. Then, the gale wind blade arrived. With a series of terrifying explosions, the mountain was torn apart and exploded into pieces. The shield was cut in half, and a dozen defensive godly lights were pierced through. 3 cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer gave horrible shrieks as they turned into ashes. Instantly killed. Instantly killed again. 3 cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. When Lu Ming was a quasi-emperor, he could use the Zephyr Pearl to fight against cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. Back then, his Great Godly Wind technique hadn't broken through to the initial level yet. Now, not only had his Great Godly Wind technique broken through to the initial level, but he had also broken through to the Godly Emperor layer. His strength was much stronger than before. Cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer couldn't withstand a single attack. How can he be so strong? The cultivators of the Flying Star sect were astonished. Die! Lu Ming didn't care about their feelings. After killing the 3 cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer, he moved closer. The Zephyr Pearl turned into a terrifying wind blade and moved towards the cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. Retreat, retreat quickly. When the cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer saw Lu Ming coming, they didn't dare continue fighting and retreated. You have the strength of the 8th Godly Emperor layer and you want to kill someone of the 7th Godly Emperor layer? There was a furious roar. In the sky, a huge palm print, which was completely condensed from starlight, slapped toward Lu Ming. Everywhere the palm print passed by, the void turned into chaos. Its power was extremely terrifying. Lu Ming didn't need to look to know it was a cultivator of the 8th Godly Emperor layer. Lu Ming held the Zephyr bead in his hand. A violent gale rushed out from the Zephyr bead and turned into a wind blade that slashed towards the palm print. Boom! Some cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer didn't have time to dodge and were blown away by the explosive chi. They coughed up blood and were all coughed up blood. The gale wind blade and starlight palm disappeared at the same time. An old man wearing a starry robe appeared in the sky. He was surrounded by starlight and looked extraordinary. However, the killing intent in his eyes was as cold as a knife. Who are you? You have the strength of the 1st Godly Emperor layer and you're so strong. There's no one like you in the Yunhua Pavilion, said the old man with white hair. I'm from the Heavenly Palace, replied Lu Ming. What? What? You're from the Heavenly Palace? Could it be? The old man's expression changed drastically. He pulled a long face. Before that, he didn't know the Heavenly Palace wanted to kill them. I'll send you to hell, said Lu Ming indifferently. Then he threw himself at the old man. If possible, Lu Ming didn't want to kill him. If he was an enemy of the Heavenly Palace, he might become a friend in the future. Unfortunately, Lu Ming didn't have a choice now. The most important thing was that the Heavenly Palace had already found out what they were doing. If the Heavenly Palace found out, they would die. Even if Lu Ming didn't kill them, the Heavenly Palace would send people to kill them. Then, they would all be killed. Lu Ming only wanted to kill the higher-ups. At the very least, the people in the middle and lower levels would be spared. The gale wind blade turned into a tornado and swept across the sky like a dragon, moving towards the old man with white hair. The white-haired elder let out a long roar, suppressing the shock in his heart. He continuously struck out with his palms, transforming them into a huge starlight handprint that blasted toward Lu Ming. But this time, the force that Lu Ming drew out from the Gale Pearl was stronger and more terrifying. When the tornado and the starlight palm collided, the starlight palm broke apart. The old man's body shook violently and he was pushed back. He coughed up blood and wounds appeared on his body. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Lu Ming didn't give him any time to breathe. He continued controlling the gale wind blade. Shouted the old man furiously. His entire body started shining as if he had turned into a star. Star Chi attack. The white-haired elder roared. His body transformed into a star, traversing the void and colliding with Lu Ming. Boom! The gale wind blade collided with Lu Ming's gale wind blade. This time, the result was the same as the previous time. Even though the gale wind blade had been blocked, the old man was still injured, and his injuries were even more serious. Now, with my full strength, I can suppress ordinary cultivators of the 8th godly emperor layer. Lu Ming made a judgment on the strength of the gale bead. He could easily suppress cultivators of the 8th godly emperor layer. The most important thing was that the gale wind blade contained in the Gale Pearl was endless. It could destroy an entire galaxy. Lu Ming just needed to draw it out. It was much easier than using other weapons. With a thought, the gale wind blade came out of the Gale Pearl. "Hurry up and help me!" shouted the old man furiously. He turned around and tried to run away. He had already blocked 2 of the gale wind blade's attacks. If he continued, he would be in danger. "You can't escape. Crush him." Lu Ming used his full strength to control the gravity pearl. The gravity pearl surrounded the old man. At the same time, he released his full strength and chased after the old man. "Stop!" shouted someone furiously. The other cultivator of the 8th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect rushed over at an incredible speed. Initially, the Flying Star sect had 14 cultivators of the 8th godly emperor layer, while the Yunhua Pavilion had 12 cultivators of the 8th godly emperor layer. The Yunhua Pavilion had been completely suppressed. But now, 2 cultivators of the 8th divine emperor realm had left the battlefield and been lured away by Lu Ming. The pressure on the Flying Star sect was greatly reduced and their morale was high. They could finally launch a counterattack and fight against the people of the Flying Star sect. On the other side, Lu Ming was even faster. Before the cultivator of the 8th godly emperor layer from the Flying Star sect arrived, Lu Ming's gale wind blade had already surrounded the old man. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.